My mom saw me fooling around and not studying every day, so she directly transferred me 50,000 yuan as a, quote, command fund, ordering me to bring a girlfriend back to meet her within 3 years. But she didn't expect that the very next day, I would show up at her door with the school's cold, aloof beauty, the campus flower, and in her arms was a little tot who looked 9/10 like me. "Grandma, I missed you so much." Seeing this, my mom was completely stunned. I gave an awkward smile and said, "You might not believe me, but this is our biological daughter who traveled back from the future. 3 months ago, I had just stepped out the door for barely 2 seconds when a little girl, sculpted and fair like jade, ran up to me. 'Daddy, I finally found you.' I was a bit confused, so I quickly knelt down and looked at her. 'Little girl, did you lose your mommy and daddy? Does Big Brother need to take you home?' But the little girl looked puzzled. 'Daddy, what are you saying? I don't understand.' My scalp tingled. I'm an 18-year-old high school boy. Why would an 8 or 9-year-old girl run up and call me daddy? Thinking quickly, I tried again. 'Did you miss your daddy? Shall Big Brother take you to find your daddy, okay?' 'You are my daddy. You are Tong Tong's daddy.' The little girl pouted sadly, opening her arms to jump into my embrace. But I instinctively flinched, making her miss. Her eyes immediately turned red. Before, Daddy loved hugging Tong Tong and lifting her high. What's wrong today? Does Daddy not want Tong Tong anymore? She grew more and more distressed, and tears started falling, one after another. Seeing this, I panicked. Don't cry, little one, did you hear me?" The little girl cried even harder. "Before, Daddy always called me baby. Woo! Tong Tong wants to find Mommy. Mommy will make you kneel on a washboard." I was speechless. Tong Tong, right? I really am not your daddy, I have photos. While crying, the little girl took a photo out of her backpack. I reluctantly took it, but when I saw the people in the picture, I froze. It was an old family photo of 3 people. In the picture, Tong Tong was being held by a man who looked 90% like me. Standing next to them was an overly beautiful woman who looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. After a few seconds, Tong Tong pouted. "With this photo taken when I was 5, Daddy can't pretend not to recognize Tong Tong anymore, right?" I came back to my senses, examining Tong Tong intently. I had to admit, this little girl did look a lot like me. I took a deep breath and asked her the names of her last 2 generations. The name of her father was, naturally, me. But when she said her mother's name was Wen Ning, I was dumbfounded again. No wonder I felt she looked familiar the moment I saw the woman in the photo. She was the white moonlight of every boy at our school. The problem was, I didn't even know her. Wen Ning was in the honors class, and I was in the regular class. High school was almost over, and I hadn't even exchanged a single word with the famous Wen, campus flower. Suddenly, Shu Miaotong reached out and grabbed my sleeve with her little hand. "Daddy, take me to find Mommy. I haven't seen Mommy in days. I miss her so much." I didn't answer but frowned, looking at her. Although I was slowly accepting this fact, why would Shu Miaotong appear here? Could it be time travel? Shu Miaotong furrowed her brows when she heard my question. "I don't know. Tong Tong just woke up from her nap and was here." Sigh. If it truly was time travel, I couldn't expect a little girl to explain it clearly, and the simplest way was to get a paternity test. Just then, Shu Miaotong's stomach rumbled. She instinctively touched her flat tummy. "Daddy, I'm so hungry." I had no choice but to take her back to my rented room. Probably because it was her first time in a new environment, Tong Tong skipped around, looking everywhere. Then she looked confused. "Daddy, why don't you live with Mommy? You used to sleep together every night. Did you two have a fight?" I fell silent, walking into the kitchen to make the child a simple bowl of egg noodles. A few minutes later, Tong Tong sat at the table, hugging a bowl bigger than her face. Maybe she was truly hungry, as her cheeks were puffed out like a pufferfish. I used this time to check the cost of a paternity test online. The fee was indeed a bit beyond my means. After eating, Tong Tong insisted on finding her mother. My head instantly started to ache. Wen Ning was the universally recognized cold, aloof beauty of the school. I didn't have her contact information, and even if I did, what would I say? "This is your daughter, and you're my future wife?" I'd be locked up as a lunatic. Just then, Tong Tong tilted her head. "Daddy, did you really fight with Mommy?" I felt a little nervous. "Did Daddy and Mommy often fight before?" Shu Miaotong shook her head. "No! Mommy and Daddy have a great relationship. And even if you fight, Daddy always goes to kneel on the washboard very quickly, and Mommy isn't mad anymore. Hearing this, I felt a mix of joy and sorrow. While it sounded like a happy marriage, it also sounded like I might be afraid of my wife. But if Xu Miaotong really was a time traveler, things were complicated. Finding her mother was the top priority. I rubbed the little girl's head, borrowed her family photo, and prepared to find the legendary Wen Ning. As I walked, I called my mom. "Mom, transfer me some money." My mother's voice was annoyed. "Didn't I just transfer you 2,000 yuan a couple of days ago? Are you a money-gobbling monster?" Xu Miaotong blinked her large eyes. "Is that Grandma? I miss Grandma too." My mom instantly became alert. "What's that commotion?" I hear a child's voice. I paused. "There's something I don't know how to tell you. You might be a grandmother." There was silence on the other end for a long time, followed by the sound of breaking glass. "You little jerk! What did you say? Say it again! Whose belly did you knock up? How many months is the baby?" I rubbed my nose. The child is 8 years old. The phone line was silent again. After a long pause, my mom's cool voice came through. "Do you think I'm an idiot? Transfer the money. After you transfer the money, you won't sound like one. Get lost! Go play somewhere!" My mom hung up quickly and decisively. Then, I received a 1,000 yuan transfer from her. Since I had classes in the afternoon, I could only leave Tong Tong at home alone. At 1:30 p.m., I went to Wen Ning's classroom. "Is Wen Ning here?" A boy looked around and shook his head. "No." I paused. "Then which seat is hers? I have something to give her." The boy looked at me strangely, but after a few seconds he told me. I thanked him and walked straight to Wen Ning's seat. Her desk was tidy, clearly the workspace of a serious student. I placed the photo under her pen holder, tore off a piece of scrap paper, and wrote down my name in class. After doing this, I quickly left, ignoring the strange looks from the other students. After all, if I wasn't embarrassed, I was invincible. Soon, it was time for school to end. My best friend, Chen Hao, came over with a basketball. "Ache, want to play some ball?" I organized my notes without looking up. "No, don't interrupt your dad from getting into a top university." Chen Hao rolled his eyes. Our grades were similar and had been fluctuating around the undergraduate admission line for 2.5 years. Could I really get into a top school in the last 4 months? Just as he was about to say more, he heard someone looking for me. "Is Shu Che here?" "Yes, the one sitting in the corner is him." I looked up and saw a familiar face at the classroom door. Chen Hao's eyes instantly landed on me. "Bro, how many dishes did you have today? You're hallucinating like this?" I had to admit that the moment I saw Wen Ning in person, I was certain. If the photo was real, she was the woman in the picture. "Shu Che, come out for a minute. I need to talk to you." Wen Ning's voice was clear, with a hint of anger. A few minutes later, I met her in a deserted corner. She took a deep breath to calm down, then spoke. "Shu Che, I don't think we know each other, do we? Where did you get this photo? Please explain." She knew she was beautiful, and people left her secret love letters every day, but this was the first time someone had given her a family photo. For a moment, the woman in the photo captured her attention, although the woman looked older and more mature and wore a gentle smile that Wen Ning herself never had. A thought uncontrollably welled up in Wen Ning's mind. That's me. Then, she couldn't help but look at the little girl and the man in the photo. She didn't recognize the man, only thinking he looked like a very pleasant uncle. But why did she feel a sense of closeness to the beautiful, doll-like little girl? Could it be a computer-generated photo? Though Wen Ning deeply believed this was a cruel prank, she had been distracted and absent-minded all afternoon. I cleared my throat gently and pointed to the photo in her hand. "You might not believe me, but this little girl calls me Daddy and says her mom is named Wen Ning." The cold campus flower subconsciously opened her mouth. "Is the stress of senior year getting to you? How long has this been going on? You're a very polite Wen student, but my mind is perfectly fine." Wen Ning was stunned, but somehow she didn't think I was lying. Perhaps it was the clarity of my eyes, or perhaps the 3 people in the photo were too important to her. She took the photo and examined it carefully. The man in the picture looked almost exactly like me, just slightly more mature than the current, youthful me. Seeing this, I patiently explained. "I didn't believe it at first, but Tong Tong gave me this photo. You might have a different thought once you meet the child." "I don't believe it. A photo doesn't prove anything." Hearing Wen Ning's suddenly cold voice, my head started to ache too. Then could you wait for me at school for a little while? Regardless of whether you believe it, just meet her. Wen Ning didn't reply, probably still in shock. I didn't say anything more, shouldered my backpack, and left school. 20 minutes later, I returned, holding Tong Tong's hand. Wen Ning was still standing there. The moment she saw the little girl, she suddenly became helpless and subconsciously took a couple of steps back, trying to escape. But her eyes refused to leave the little girl. "Mommy!" Xu Miaotong's eyes sparkled. She opened her arms and ran toward Wen Ning. "I'm not your mommy." Wen Ning wanted to dodge, but the little girl hugged her long, straight legs. The child's chubby little face looked up at her happily. "Mommy, why are you so pretty today?" Wen Ning froze. She looked at me for help, but I was standing far away. She had no choice but to squat down and look at Tong Tong. "Little friend, I am not your mother. You are my mommy." Xu Miaotong was confused. Why were both daddy and mommy suddenly denying her? Feeling wronged, she instantly turned into a crybaby, with tears streaming down her face. Wen Ning felt her heart constrict. She awkwardly wiped the little girl's face with her hand. "Don't cry, don't cry." She finally understood what I meant when I said meeting her would make her feel different. Half an hour later, Wen Ning and I were sitting in a cake shop. Tong Tong was eating sweet cake next to me, her short legs swinging. The sight melted both Wen Ning's and my heart. Finally, regaining my composure, I paused and spoke. Can I just call you Wen Ning?" Wen Ning tried her best to stay calm. She softly hummed an, "Yes, you can." I took a sip of lemon water and cleared my throat. "I think we need to resolve this as soon as possible. My idea is to get a paternity test for Tong Tong." Wen Ning naturally had no objection. What if the result is true?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. 2 high school students are not capable of raising a child, especially since we're in the critical period of preparing for the college entrance exam. Just then, the little girl innocently asked, "Mommy, don't be mad at Daddy anymore, okay? Can we go home together?" Wen Ning looked at me confusedly. I scratched my head helplessly. "She thinks you're not coming home because you had a fight with me." I couldn't figure out what to say, so I just went with it. "Fine." Wen Ning accepted the explanation. She thought for a moment, her fingers gripping the lemon water glass tightly. "Right, the cost of the test." I placed my phone on the table. "It's about 2,000 yuan in total. I think we need to split the cost." Wen Ning hesitated. "I'm sorry, I might have some difficulty with that. My usual allowance is not much." Seeing this, I decided to pay it first and let her repay me when she had the money. My mom had just transferred me 1,000 yuan, which was exactly enough. "Thank you, I'll pay you back as soon as possible." But hearing her words, Tong Tong tilted her head. "Mommy talks so strange. Mommy manages all the money at home. Why does she suddenly have to give money to Daddy?" Only then did Wen Ning and I realize a problem we had overlooked. The two of us were most likely a married couple in the future. Wen Ning blushed and looked away, not knowing how to answer the little girl. Xu Che and I had no interaction in high school. Why would we get married in the future? I was also curious. "Tong Tong, do you know how Mommy and Daddy got together? Was it through a blind date or something?" Xu Miaotong's eyebrows scrunched up. "Tong Tong doesn't understand. It's just that Mommy and Daddy sometimes argue about who liked who first. So it wasn't a blind date, but a journey from dating to marriage. And was that really an argument? That sounded like showing off their affection in front of their child." Thinking of that scene, Wen Ning felt her scalp tingle. She really couldn't imagine a future where she would smile as gently and happily as the woman in the photo. She looked at her watch awkwardly. "I need to go back. I can't be home too late. Xu Che, please let me know the result immediately." Then Wen Ning took out her phone. "I'll add you on WeChat. You can contact me directly if anything happens." After adding me on WeChat, Wen Ning was ready to leave. Her eyes landed on Xu Miaotong again. Xu Miaotong instantly felt that the cake in her hand was not as tasty. "Mommy, aren't you coming home with us? Does Mommy not like Tong Tong?" I rubbed her head. "How is that possible? Mommy has something very important to do. Tong Tong needs to be sensible." Wen Ning's footsteps paused, and then she quickly ran off with her school bag, not saying a word. The urgent test results came back quickly. Around 9 p.m., my WeChat received 2 report slips. The professional testing agency showed that the probability of Shu Miaotong having a parent-child relationship with us was 99.99%. In other words, Shu Miaotong was indeed our daughter. After seeing my message, Wen Ning finally gave up and accepted the fact that her daughter had traveled from the future. I immediately sent another message. What do we do now? You are Tong Tong's daddy, you're asking me. Are you going to be an irresponsible scumbag? After typing these 3 words, Wen Ning looked at the blank test paper with a headache. She hadn't written a single word all night. Her mind was filled with the irresistibly cute little girl and the clean, handsome me. What are they doing now? Thinking this, Wen Ning slapped her cheek and got up from her room. She stood at the door, hesitating for a long time before speaking. Dad? Xiaoning, what is it? Wen Qiming turned the TV volume down a bit. Wen Ning pursed her lips. Dad, can you give me a little more pocket money? 1,000 yuan. However, the stepmother's voice came from the kitchen as soon as she finished speaking. What do you need so much money for? You eat at home every day and don't stay out. Where are you going to spend 1,000 yuan? Qiming, don't give it to her. This is the most important time for high school. She needs to focus on her studies. Wen Ning didn't know how to explain. She didn't say anything, just stood stubbornly with her head down. Xiaoning, don't listen to your mom. Go back to your room and wait. Wen Qiming lowered his voice. Dad will bring it to you in a minute. Wen Ning didn't want to stay in the living room. She lowered her eyes and went back to her room. She stared blankly at the test paper, somehow unable to write a single word. 10 minutes later, Wen and Qiming knocked on the door, then came in with a stack of money. Wen Ning quickly stood up. Dad, I'm sorry, It's okay. If the money is not enough, be sure to tell Dad. Wen Qiming smiled. Xiaoning is a big girl now. If you see a pretty dress or something, feel free to buy it. Wen Ning didn't know what to say. She nodded silently and reached out to take the money. Wen Qiming smiled, about to show more concern, when her younger half-sister shouted from the next room, Dad, Mom, where did you put the doll I bought with my friends yesterday? Hearing this, Wen Qiming hurriedly left. It might be in the cabinet. Look for it yourself. Then, the sister's spoiled voice and the father's slightly helpless but infinitely doting voice came from the next room. Wen Ning lowered her eyes. When she was little, her dad used to speak to her in the same tone. But everything changed after her mother passed away and her father found a new woman. Wen Ning shook her head, carefully placed the 1,000 yuan in her backpack, and then picked up her phone to send me a message. What are you two doing now? The other side didn't reply for a long time. It wasn't until past 10 p.m. that I finally replied. Tong Tong and I are shopping at the mall to buy her some clothes. Attached was a photo. Wen Ning clicked on it. It was Shu Miaotong wearing a white bunny pajama set. The little girl was smiling happily, like a mischievous little sprite. Wen Ning held her phone, feeling that faint cloud of melancholy in her heart instantly dissipate a great deal. Just then, her phone chimed again. She clicked on it, and Shu Miaotong's sweet voice came through. Mommy, I'm a little bunny now. I'm super cute, right? Wen Ning listened to it over and over. So Tong Tong really is my future daughter. Wen Ning pressed her thin, rosy lips together, looked down, and typed a reply. Super cute. After we bought some things, I brought the little girl home. Looking at the large bags and checking my bank balance, honestly, Tong Tong is very sweet and adorable. But she does have one flaw. Her living environment from childhood must have been very comfortable. She is a genuine little princess. When she sees something pretty she likes, she'll pull my hand and sweetly beg me to buy it. I hung my jacket on the rack and casually asked, Tong Tong, how big is the place you usually live? Is it bigger than here? Tong Tong surveyed the room. This is about the size of the bathroom back home, right? My eyes lit up. Good. I was now certain that my future career was very successful and that I was a total daughterholic hoe, the kind of dad who would pluck the stars and the moon for his daughter. But right now, I'm just a poor high school student, and Wen Ning doesn't seem to be a super rich second-generation heiress either. This is gonna be trouble. How much money does it take to raise a child? I was getting a headache thinking about the balance in my card. Where's the system? My daughter has time traveled. Is there no help dad become a dragon system? I looked down and met Shu Miaotong's bright eyes. The little girl pinched her bunny ears, tilted her head, and gave me an adorably foolish smile. I sighed. Okay, looks like there's nothing. I then finished washing up with Tong Tong and got ready for bed. She happily hugged me. I want to sleep with Daddy tonight. When she was little, she used to sleep with her mommy and daddy, with mommy on the left and daddy on the right, and she would burrow into either one's arms. But once she started elementary school, she got her own room, and mommy wouldn't let her sleep with them anymore. I wanted to refuse, but seeing the expectation in my daughter's bright eyes, I couldn't bring myself to say no. Don't steal Daddy's blanket! Shu Miaotong happily jumped onto the bed, burying her head in the blanket with her bottom up. It smells like Daddy! Just then, my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered, and Wen Ning's clear voice came through. Shuche, are you two home? Yes, we are. I didn't know how to buy clothes for the little girl, so I only picked out one set of pajamas. Find a chance to take her shopping. Okay, let's find a time this weekend. Wen Ning's voice sounded a little embarrassed. That? I can't really have her at my place. I waved my hand. It's fine. I live alone. It's okay for Tong Tong to stay with me. But Tong Tong seemed very happy to see you. Wen Ning could see that, of course. After all, during their brief time together today, her mind had been completely filled with this soft, cute little bundle, Tong Tong. Wen Ning took a deep breath. Shu Che, let's find a time to meet tomorrow. Somewhere private. Her voice was very low, like a thief. I chuckled softly. I know our aloof Wen campus flower never has scandals. Wen Ning stopped talking. My words seemed to make her a little annoyed and unhappy. She couldn't help but let out a soft HMPH. Hearing this, I quickly said, Just kidding. Just contact me when you're free. Oh, do you want to talk to Tong Tong? Shu Miaotong's eyes visibly lit up beside me. Is it Mommy? Tong Tong wants to say goodnight to Mommy. The sound on the other end of the phone clearly stiffened, followed by a small thud, like a water glass hitting the table. Never mind. With that, Wen Ning hung up the phone quickly, as if fleeing from a disaster. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and a violent flush of pink spread up from her neck, quickly seizing her crystal-clear earlobes and porcelain-white cheeks. I'm only in the final year of high school. A future husband and a cute daughter. This is too strange. When I woke up the next morning, I found Shu Miaotong hanging on to me, sleeping soundly, with a string of drool on the corner of her mouth. I closed my eyes, enjoying the quiet atmosphere for a while before gently and quietly peeling her off. By the time I had washed up and bought breakfast, Shu Miaotong was already awake. She didn't seem fully alert yet, sitting cross-legged on the bed in a daze. When she saw me, she pouted, looking angry. Daddy, kiss Tong Tong. I put the breakfast on the table. Tong Tong is a big girl now. She can't be so clingy to Daddy. Hearing this, Shu Miaotong immediately huffed. Hateful Daddy! I was a little confused, thinking I hadn't done anything to upset her. Does this girl have morning crankiness? Thinking this, I looked at her with interest. Tong Tong doesn't like Daddy anymore? Morning crankiness is not good. People in the Shu family don't have that habit, so whose genetics is it? Shu Miaotong pouted and gave me an unhappy look. It wasn't until after breakfast that she fully woke up, transforming from an angry little pufferfish back into the soft, adorable little bundle from before. She hugged me, a little aggrieved. Daddy, Tong Tong is so bored at home alone. I used to have so many friends at school. I stroked her head. Tong Tong, can you be patient for 2 more days? You'll be able to make new friends soon. Daddy will be back at noon. If you're hungry, there are strawberries in the fridge and snacks on the coffee table. Shu Miaotong was very sensible. She gave me a loud peck on the cheek. Tong Tong will be good at home. Daddy needs to bring Mommy home quickly. Little Lolly's pink lips were soft and warm, which inexplicably calmed me. On the way to school, I kept thinking about how to get Tong Tong into a school, as she couldn't stay home forever. When I arrived at school, Chen Hao immediately came over with a stern face to interrogate me. Che, explain. What's your relationship with the Wen campus flower? I glanced at him. No relationship. We just have a daughter. Seeing his disbelief, I waved my hand. Just kidding. I'm the student life organizer. Wen Ning is the math representative for the honors class. It was something about a teacher. Besides, she's the campus flower. Would she even look at me? Don't overthink it. This satisfied Chen Hao. After all, good friends can endure hardship together, but they can't be outdone. However, my childhood friend, Li Yu, who was sitting next to us, countered, Why couldn't she be interested in you? Che, you actually look pretty good. If you dress up, you have the potential to be a kept man. I'm guessing that kind of auntie, 50 years older, would love this type. The blogger highly agrees with this point. He does look good. Only a little less handsome than Yanzu on screen. Chen Hao looked miserable. When did you go blind? Are you secretly interested in Che? Li Yu frowned. Buzz off. I mean, Haozi, you're the ugliest. As the two continued to bicker, the time quickly arrived for the first math class. Looking at the 72-point test paper, which was 8 points lower than the required passing score, Li Yu was a little distraught. If she didn't score well on the college entrance exam, she would have to go back and inherit her family business. She would be jumping from the starting line of life straight to the finish line. Yes, she was a wealthy girl whose family owned over a dozen chain restaurants. But this girl was a study maniac, the kind who was practicing 9-yin manual kung fu. She studied for 12 hours a day, just wanting to taste the bitterness of life. At noon, Wen Ning and I arranged to meet at the entrance of the small convenience store behind the school. After waiting for about 5 minutes, Wen Ning slowly walked over. I handed her a bottle of mineral water. Do you have morning crankiness? Wen Ning looked surprised. After a while, she hesitated. How? How did you know? Her morning crankiness was severe. She'd wake up and everything would annoy her. She'd even kick a dog passing by. That's why Wen Ning always got up very early and left home to avoid upsetting her stepmother and stepsister. But this was her biggest secret. Not even her dad knew. I sighed. Then Tong Tong inherited it from you. When she was mad at me this morning, I didn't dare talk back to her. Seeing Wen Ning's silence, I said in the most polite tone I could muster, "This habit isn't actually very good." Wen Ning was a little unhappy. It's natural, I can't change it. HMPH. If you don't like it, why did you marry me? You deserve the morning crankiness. I then suggested that she come home and meet Tong Tong again. Wen Ning hesitated. The second meeting is already at his house? Although she felt a little awkward, she didn't feel much resistance. After all, if she hadn't genuinely fallen in love with me in the future, she would absolutely never have married me. So she nodded in agreement. Come back early, I still have test papers to write. A few minutes later, the two of us sat side by side in the back seat of the bus. Wen Ning took a deep breath and pulled out a notebook from her backpack. I've thought a lot about Tong Tong's situation since I got home. She pointed the tip of her pen at the first point. First and foremost, you need to keep track of all the money you spend on Tong Tong. I need to bear half of the cost. My daily allowance isn't much, but I will definitely pay you back. I was a little surprised by her serious expression. I hesitated for 2 seconds and then said, actually, you don't have to give me this money. I'm Tong Tong's dad. It's normal to earn money to support my wife and child. Wen Ning's cheeks instantly flushed crimson. She glared at me fiercely. Stop talking nonsense! Who's your wife? I gave a dry laugh. Please continue. I currently live with my family, and there's no way I can tell them about this. So Tong Tong can probably only stay with you. Maybe when I get to university, I'll move out. Wen Ning was a little embarrassed, feeling like she couldn't help with anything about Tong Tong and that everything relied on me. I waved my hand. It's no big deal. But Tong Tong really misses you. Try to spend time with her every day. Wen Ning pursed her lips and slowly nodded after a long time. Then she brought up the most important issue. And there's Tong Tong's identity. To integrate into this society and grow up like a normal little girl, she needs an identity. I closed my eyes, rubbing my head as I thought about the problem. Wen Ning didn't bother me again, lowering her gaze to look at the notebook in her hand. She hadn't read any science fiction novels, and her concept of time was stuck at the most basic level. If life had taken its normal course, she would marry me one day and give birth to Tong Tong. But now that Tong Tong had returned from the future, and she and I had met early, had our life trajectories been changed? Would we still get married and have Tong Tong in the future? Wouldn't that mean there would be 2 Tong Tongs? When Ning couldn't figure it out, her thoughts were a jumbled mess. After a while, I opened my eyes. I'll figure out Tong Tong's identity. When Ning came back to her senses, still a little dazed. Will it be very troublesome? I shook my head. Just a little. Anyway, I'll handle it. You don't need to worry too much. Compared to me, Wen Ning felt like she was not a competent mother at all. Feeling a little down, she took out 1,000 yuan. Here's the money for the test. I didn't decline and took it directly. Soon, the bus reached the stop. As I opened the door, the little sprite-like girl ran out of the room. When she saw Wen Ning, Tong Tong's eyes lit up instantly. She opened her arms and jumped into Wen Ning's embrace. "Mommy, welcome home." Wen Ning's expression was a little unnatural, but she still couldn't help but squat down and hug her. Seeing this, Shu Miaotong stood on her tiptoes and pecked her mommy's right cheek. Then, she ran over to Daddy and did the same. Watching this scene, a very strange thought suddenly popped into Wen Ning's mind. Why does this feel a little like an old married couple? Stepping into the living room, Wen Ning noticed that my home was much cleaner than she had imagined. There was none of the messiness typical of a single guy living alone. Instead, it was very tidy, which made her feel much more comfortable. "What did Tong Tong do at home this morning?" Wen Ning avoided her daughter's bright eyes and asked in the gentlest voice possible. "Watching TV." Shu Miaotong clung to her mommy and wouldn't let go, and waiting for Mommy and Daddy to come home. I went to the kitchen to wash my hands and glanced at the TV, which was showing the classic Pleasant Goat and Big Big Wolf. I smiled. "Tong Tong, do you know how Pleasant Goat ends?" Su Miaotong immediately pressed. What? Did Big Wolf eat him?" Shu Miaotong was stunned for a long time. After a moment, her lips quickly turned downward and she burst into tears. Wen Ning was heartbroken at the sight. She quickly hugged Tong Tong and glared at me. "Don't say things like that! Daddy is lying!" In the end, Pleasant Goat chased Big Wolf away. Shu Miaotong cheered up again. She made a face at me fiercely. "Mean Daddy, go away!" I couldn't help but laugh. See, I can get along with my daughter just fine. When I came out of the kitchen again, the mother and daughter were already sitting on the sofa. Shu Miaotong hadn't been close to her mommy for many days, and now she was glued to Wen Ning's embrace, completely unwilling to leave. Mommy, Tong Tong slept with Daddy last night. Mommy never used to let me sleep with Daddy. Is that so?" Wen Ning was also curious about her future self. It seemed she might be a strict mother. Tong Tong pouted. "Yeah, Mommy is so stingy. Mommy always fights with Tong Tong over Daddy." I casually interjected. "Then Tong Tong doesn't get mad at Mommy?" "I do." Then Mommy asks Daddy, "If Tong Tong and I fall into the water, who will you save first?" I suddenly had a bad premonition. And then Daddy got punished by Mommy to kneel on the washboard. Saying this, Shu Miaotong held out her hands and gestured the size, this big, for washing clothes. I turned my head sharply, looking at the Wen campus flower sitting on the sofa with some alarm. Wen Ning, on the other hand, looked disbelieving. Although there's a saying that a daughter is a father's little lover, she didn't believe her future self would be jealous of her daughter. Sensing my gaze, Wen Ning looked serious and said, "What are you looking at me for? Now you know what kind of person I am, right?" I nodded cautiously. "I know." But my cautious, on-guard look seemed to infuriate Wen Ning. "What do you mean by that? Do you think I'm the kind of woman who makes her husband kneel on the floor at the drop of a hat?" I stopped talking to the mother and daughter and went back to the kitchen to prepare lunch. After watching TV with Tong Tong for a while, Wen Ning also walked into the kitchen to help. I looked back at her, handling the shrimp I bought this morning. "You don't need to bother. You should spend more time with Tong Tong." But Wen Ning frowned. "Shu Che, have you ever handled fresh seafood before?" My movements stopped. "I know that if you put shrimp in a pot, they turn into cooked shrimp." "And what else?" "Before the shrimp died, it was alive." Hearing this, Wen Ning sighed, then tied on an apron and ushered me aside. Seeing this, I felt like she had subtly looked down on me. Tong Tong was right. Regardless of whether this current version of me and Wen Ning end up together, the dynamics of our family status are already showing up. Wen Ning knew what I was talking about. She stiffened her face and her voice was cool. "Then you'd better be careful in this life and make sure you don't fall into my hands again, or I'll make you kneel until you die." Wen Ning was fast. Soon, she had cooked a table full of delicious food. Looking at it, Shu Miaotong's eyes welled up with moving tears. Seeing this, Wen Ning inexplicably felt a sense of achievement. I took a bite and gave a very insincere assessment. "It's nothing special. About the same as mine." Wen Ning rolled her eyes, then lowered her head to put food on Tong Tong's plate. "Tong Tong, eat slowly." Perhaps Wen Ning herself didn't even notice the gentle expression that unconsciously appeared on her face when she looked at Tong Tong. After a while, she suddenly asked cautiously, "Shu Che, how are your academic results?" I glanced at her. "I fluctuate around the normal undergraduate line. I don't drop below it, but I don't go up either. I can't compare to you, who is ranked 6th in the whole school." "I see." Wen Ning slowed down her eating, seeming to ponder something. I knew what she was thinking. After a moment of silence, I sighed. "Fine. I originally wanted to get along with you all as a regular person, but it looks like I'll have to take the exam in the same city as you." Wen Ning's eyes instantly widened. She looked at me with a strange expression. I frowned. "Are you secretly looking down on me in your heart?" Wen Ning looked very embarrassed. "No, I should be the one trying to get into the same city as you. I think that would be easier." I sighed. "When campus flower, your aggression level is a little high. But why would a top student like you marry me? Someone who scores less than 600 points. The moment I finished speaking, Wen Ning's cheeks instantly puffed out. "How should I know? How did the future me get tricked into marrying you?" After lunch, the two of us spent a little more time with Tong Tong, then got ready to leave for our afternoon classes. The little girl was naturally very reluctant to see us go. Wen Ning coaxed her for a long time, promising to come back and spend time with her tomorrow. Shu Miaotong clung to her mommy's long legs and wouldn't let go. "Mommy and Daddy always kiss Tong Tong before going out." Wen Ning had no choice but to kiss her cheek. Shu Miaotong's eyes curved in a smile. "And Daddy." So I also followed Wen Ning's example and touched her other cheek. "Mommy and Daddy, come home early. Tong Tong will miss you." Our moods became a little strange at the sight, as if we were a real married couple leaving home. On the way to school, Wen Ning looked worried. Tong Tong is very sensible, but it's too cruel to leave her alone at home. I thought for a moment and said, "It's the weekend tomorrow, thankfully. I plan to take Tong Tong to my aunt's place." Seeing her puzzled look, I explained, "My uncle is with the police station. I'll ask him about Tong Tong's situation." I sighed. If Tong Tong were a bit older, I could just say she's Old Shu's illegitimate daughter and my younger sister. Wen Ning hesitated. "I'll go with you." I didn't think much of it and agreed right away. When we arrived at the classroom, Li Yu was sitting at her desk, working on test papers while Chen Hao was sleeping on his desk. I sat and reviewed my notes for a while, suddenly feeling a headache. 688 points? I wouldn't be able to get that even if I studied like Yu. Li Yu, who had been talked about behind her back, looked up sensitively. "Ah Che, are you and the Wen campus flower really involved?" "No, I'm not interested in women." But Li Yu felt something was wrong. "Then what are you interested in?" "Making money. By the way, Yu, let me ask you something. What are some ways for high school students to earn money?" Li Yu was stunned for a moment. "Are you really short on money? How much do you need? I'll transfer it to you now." I have saved up over 200,000 yuan from New Year's money and pocket money over the years. "Is that enough?" I was instantly dumbfounded. "Big sister, should I just become your maid?" But after a moment of thought, I shook my head and refused. "I'll come to you when I really need it." Li Yu understood my personality. She smiled, put away her phone and said, "All right then, let's go out for barbecue tonight, my treat." Hearing her words, I paused. "Then I'll bring someone along. My 8-year-old cousin is staying at my place lately." Li Yu had no objection. So after school, I went home to pick up Tong Tong. But what I never expected was that when she saw Li Yu and Chen Hao, Tong Tong suddenly said happily, "Uncle Chen Hao, Auntie Yu, long time no see. Uncle, why do you suddenly have hair?" We were all stunned. Chen Hao clenched his fist. "When did I ever not have hair? And calling me uncle right off the bat? Do you have any manners, little girl?" Thinking this, he looked at me with deep resentment. "Did you teach her that?" I looked at Chen Hao's thick hair, my face looking odd. Only I knew how much truth there was in Tong Tong's words. Li Yu also examined Shu Miaotong curiously. Then she shook her head and said, "She doesn't look like your cousin. This must be your biological sister." I sighed in relief. I admitted it openly. "Well, she's not exactly my sister either." I then squatted down and hugged Tong Tong. "This is my daughter, Tong Tong. Of course she looks like Daddy." Shu Miaotong also happily wrapped her arms around my neck. "I like Daddy the most." Chen Hao rolled his eyes. "Fine, let's go eat." What are you teaching a child all day? Her own dad won't beat you. I couldn't help but laugh. If you don't believe it, forget it. We then arrived at a newly opened mall. Tong Tong, who hadn't been out with Daddy in a long time, was overjoyed and skipped along the way. Suddenly, she stopped and pointed at a claw machine. "Daddy, I want that one." I took a look. Inside was a fluffy white rabbit doll. "Daddy will bring you back to get it after dinner." Tong Tong nodded. "Get two. One for Tong Tong and one for Mommy." Hearing this, I suddenly remembered that a very small rabbit doll was also hanging on Wen Ning's backpack. While sitting on the bus at noon today, she would sometimes unconsciously tug on the toy rabbit's ear. Just then, Chen Hao, walking ahead, asked with a smile, "Little girl, who is your mom?" "Mommy is just Mommy." Uncle Chen Hao's question is strange. Chen Hao's face twitched. "Call me Big Brother. Big Brother will get you a doll later." Shu Miao-tong turned her head away unhappily. "I don't want it." This made Li Yuyu unable to resist reaching out and pinching her little face. "Little sister, don't mind him. This uncle is not a good person. You must stay far away from him in the future." Chen Hao curled his lip. Yes, I'm not a good person. I wonder who got bullied in elementary school and came running over, crying and tugging my sleeve, calling me Brother Chen Hao. Li Yuyu was flustered. That was years ago. I was young and naive then. Watching the two argue, Shu Miao-tong cautiously whispered in my ear, "Daddy, Uncle, and Auntie are still fighting every day. I wonder if they'll ask Daddy to mediate." Hearing this, I looked ahead strangely. Fighting every day? Could it be that these two are still stuck together after graduating from university? Sure enough, when we sat down at the barbecue restaurant, Shu Miao-tong suddenly frowned. "Auntie, why didn't Min Min come today?" Li Yuyu was confused. "Who is Min Min?" Shu Miao-tong was startled. "She's Uncle Chen Hao's and Auntie Yu's daughter. She's my best friend." Hearing this, Chen Hao, who was drinking water, almost choked to death on the spot. Li Yuyu was also startled and immediately glared at me, somewhat embarrassed and angry. "You! What do you usually tell this child?" I awkwardly threw up my hands. I truly didn't teach her that. Lai, you imagined that scene and subconsciously shivered. "Don't gross me out. I'd throw up every morning seeing his face." Chen Hao shot back with a sneer. "TCH, plenty of girls chase me, who cares?" But Li Yuyu nodded. "True, you should be careful though. Since you're old and ugly, they might just be lacking a father figure." Chen Hao, who was laughing in anger, was about to say something, but when he saw Tong Tong across the table, he swallowed all his curses. In the end, he gave a thumbs up. Awesome. The two hadn't made up by the time they ate. They ate coldly and silently until they finished. As promised, I went to the claw machine to get the rabbit dolls for Tong Tong. Tong Tong hugged the two fluffy rabbit dolls, rubbing her face on them. So cute! Afterward, the two of us parted ways with them, holding hands and walking home. I stroked my daughter's head. "Tong Tong, is what you said true? That Uncle Chen Hao and Auntie Yu have a daughter named Min Min?" Shu Miao-tong happily pulled the rabbit's ears. "Yes, Min Min is my best friend." Hearing this, I also felt a little worried. Would those futures change because of Tong Tong's arrival? But then I thought about it and relaxed. Time travel is already so absurd. Why overthink it? Other time travelers come with systems and cheat codes. An embarrassing time traveler like Tong Tong would be kicked out of the group next door. The next morning at 8:30 a.m., Wen Ning arrived at my doorstep. I scratched my messy hair. "You're so early. Tong Tong isn't up yet. Come in." Walking into the living room, Wen Ning immediately saw the two white rabbit dolls on the sofa. She stared at them for a long time before reluctantly looking away. Seeing this, I casually picked one up and put it in Wen Ning's hand. "This is for you. Tong Tong said you like rabbits and insisted I get one for you." Wen Ning held the rabbit blankly, a little at a loss. I didn't pay much attention to her expression and walked into the room to wake up my daughter. Only then did Wen Ning lower her head and look at the rabbit doll in her hand. Her eyes held a faint softness. "It's so cute." Actually, it had been a long time since anyone had given her a small rabbit doll. The one on her backpack was bought by her mother from a street vendor and personally hung on her bag when Wen Ning was in preschool. Every time Wen Ning tugged on the rabbit's ear, she could still remember her mother's face. After breakfast, Shu Miaotong's face was puffed up as she lay in Wen Ning's arms, looking like an angry pufferfish. Wen Ning was a little awkward. The little girl's early morning look of world weariness was indeed exactly like her own, so she lowered her head and stroked her daughter's head. "Tong Tong, are you unhappy to see Mommy? Pouting like that isn't pretty at all." Who knew that Tong Tong's next words would annoy her? "I'm happy! Mommy woke me up, that's why." Seeing this, I gave her a fake smile. "I told you this little girl is very cranky in the morning. Wonder who she inherited it from." Wen Ning's face froze. After a long time, she composed herself and said coolly, "Then you should make a note of it. Never marry someone with morning crankiness." I lowered my head, tidying my backpack. "I've decided. In the future, I'll set a house rule. Anyone who throws a morning tantrum at me gets a spanking." Wen Ning let out a cold HMPH. "Tong Tong, Daddy said he'd spank your bottom." I immediately denied it. "I wouldn't bear to spank Tong Tong." Wen Ning's face froze again. When she realized what I'd said, her face instantly flushed crimson. It wasn't until half an hour later that Shu Miaotong fully recovered from her waking state. She lay in Wen Ning's arms, giggling nonstop. Meanwhile, I squatted next to them, putting all the game console and scattered discs into my backpack. "You two play for a bit longer. I'm going out and we'll be back soon." Wen Ning was stunned. "Where are you going?" "Sell the game console and discs. The college entrance exam is coming up soon, and you don't have time to play anyway. Sell them while they're still worth something." Wen Ning didn't know much about men's electronics, so she didn't think much of what I said. It wasn't until the sound of the door closing that she belatedly realized something. "Does Daddy like playing games?" Tong Tong nodded emphatically. "He loves it? There are so many game consoles at home. Daddy wipes them with a towel several times a day." Tong Tong loves sitting in Daddy's arms and watching him play games. Hearing this, Wen Ning looked at the empty coffee table and said nothing. It was indeed for Tong Tong, something he clearly loved, but he pretended not to care about it in front of her. Wen Ning had never truly understood me. Due to her mother's early death, Wen Ning had always held a somewhat detached attitude towards relationships, but now she suddenly felt that no matter what her current attitude towards me was, at least in Tong Tong's world, the future Wen Ning must have truly loved me. Thinking of this, Wen Ning gently pinched her daughter's cheek. "Tong Tong, don't be mad at Daddy when you wake up in the morning, okay?" Hearing this, Tong Tong's little face crumpled. She didn't want to be mad at Daddy, but she felt so annoyed when she woke up. Then, she held out her little finger. "Then, Mommy, make a pinky promise with Tong Tong. In the future, even if Tong Tong and Mommy are very, very annoyed when they wake up, they won't be mad at Daddy." Wen Ning stiffened, her mood subtly complicated. After a long while, she finally held out her finger and made a pinky promise with her daughter. Half an hour later, I returned. Looking at the mother and daughter sitting on the sofa watching TV, I asked, "What did you two talk about?" Hearing my voice, Shu Miaotong jumped off the sofa and threw herself into my arms. "It's a secret, Daddy." Tong Tong and Mommy just made a pinky promise for 100 years, no changing. I looked at Wen Ning, but she turned her head away, though the back of her ears were inexplicably hot again. "Yes, it's a secret. We can't tell you." I squatted down and didn't press for details. "Let's go. First we'll buy clothes for Tong Tong. Then we'll go see Auntie this afternoon." After leaving, I chose the nearest mall and walked ahead, holding my phone. I checked my Alipay balance. The game console and discs were in excellent condition and sold for over 3,000 yuan in total. It should be enough for living expenses. Even after buying clothes for Tong Tong, there would be a lot left over. But Tong Tong would definitely need to go to school later, I calculated silently, which made me a bit quiet. Wen Ning, walking behind, held Shu Miaotong's hand. Her expression was rarely soft, and seeing her daughter happy also made her inexplicably joyful. However, she never expected to run into her stepsister Wen Xiong here. She was surrounded by a group of middle school girls, all dressed flamboyantly. But when she saw Tong Tong holding Wen Ning's hand, and me standing beside them, her face suddenly showed displeasure. "Wen Ning, if you came to the mall, just tell Mom you're hanging out with friends. Why did you lie and say you were going to the library?" Wen Ning gave a perfunctory, Then lowered her eyes and said nothing, only slightly tightening her grip on Tong Tong's hand. But Wen Chong continued to press. "Sis, who is he? And where did this kid come from?" Yu Miao Tong glanced at her, then immediately buried her face in her mommy's arms, looking a little unhappy. Wen Ning's face was expressionless. She said softly, "A friend. I'm just asking. You don't have to worry, I won't tell Dad and Mom." Wen Hyung's face clearly showed disbelief, and she continued to pester, very interested, mainly because this was the first time in so many years she had seen Wen Ning out with a boy. Wen Ning remained silent. Gradually, the middle school girls with Wen Qiang began to feel that the relationship between the two sisters was very subtle. Wen Qiang was very annoyed and sneered softly. "Do you have to be like this all the time? We're family. There's no need to hide everything from us, is there? Are you giving Mom and me attitude?" Wen Ning found her words a little amusing. Honestly, she didn't hate her stepsister that much. It was normal for a stepmother to love her own daughter. Wen Ning would help with chores at home and never fought for anything growing up. But Wen Qiang and her stepmother just didn't like her. Thinking this, Wen Ning took a deep breath. "Actually, it doesn't matter if you tell them. I'm 18 now and an adult. I can have my own life and friends." Wen Qiang's mouth moved, but she didn't know what to say. In the end, she just stomped her foot angrily. "Fine, do whatever you want. I can't be bothered with you. With a personality like yours, no wonder Dad and Mom don't like you. No one will ever like you." Wen Ning didn't say anything, but I, who had been on my phone, looked up and glanced at Wen Qiang. "Little girl, don't be so loose-lipped. You sound like an old hag at such a young age. Isn't that embarrassing?" "What did you say?" Wen Qiang instantly flushed. "Sis, who is he?" Saying this, she reached out to push me, but I didn't budge, and she staggered back a step. I wasn't angry. I just reached out and patted her on the shoulder. "Get along well with your sister in the future. Don't bully her all the time. Got it?" As I said this, my expression gradually hardened. "When I was bullying people back in middle school, you probably weren't even born yet." Wen Qiang's heart seized up under my gaze, and she subconsciously took a step back. Only then did I slowly smile. "That's better. Be a good girl, and your sister will buy you some treats later." "All right, nothing to see here. Go play with your friends." Hearing my tone of lecturing a child, Wen Qiang wisely didn't argue further and left silently with her friends. Seeing this, Wen Ning finally snapped out of her daze. To be honest, she was a little scared, even thinking that in the next second, I would reach out and slap Wen Qiang's mouth. She thought about it and muttered quietly. "Why are you suddenly so aggressive?" I shrugged. In middle school, Chen Hao and I were messing around outside all the time. We were ruthless back then, but I reformed later. Wen Ning looked a little dazed. After a while, she complained quietly that she didn't actually curse at me just now. I glanced at her and said casually, "No," she said, "no one will ever like you." Wen Ning froze. There was obvious confusion on her beautiful face. "No one will like me. Why are you angry about that?" Her words were strange. Wen Ning felt the back of her ears belatedly burning again. Just then I continued, "Isn't that an insult to Tong Tong?" Hearing this, Wen Ning made a sound of realization, knowing she had misunderstood. But a sudden sense of frustration welled up in her, and she blurted out, "Then you must be a real piece of work to fall in love with me in the future." I was stunned by this. Why was the brain circuit of this top student, Wen, so different from ordinary people, making her seem a little silly? Then the two of us took Tong Tong shopping at the mall to pick out some clothes for her. The mother and daughter had similar tastes. Tong Tong loved the beautiful children's clothes that Wen Ning liked. "Why don't you try these? I think they'd look great on you all." The sales clerk pointed to the side. Wen Ning followed her gaze. They were 3 adorable little cat parent-child pajamas. The sales clerk then looked at me, sitting in a chair and playing with my phone. "They'd be perfect for your older brother. Could he be a little more serious?" Mistaken for the older brother. I looked up and immediately felt a sense of dread. How could a tall, straight man like me wear something like that? So I quickly waved my hand and refused. "No thank you." Hearing this, Tong Tong hugged me and started to plead. "Daddy, Tong Tong likes it." I frowned. "But Daddy will be laughed at by Uncle Chen Hao if I wear such childish clothes." "Please, Daddy is the best." Su Miatong grabbed my hand and swung it back and forth reluctantly. The sales clerk standing nearby was completely charmed. Having no choice, I pinched her nose. Tong Tong knows this trick even at such a young age. When she grows up, I wonder how many boys she'll lead on. Wen Ning looked at Tong Tong clinging to her daddy, feeling an inexplicable subtlety in her mood. No wonder Tong Tong said she would fight her for daddy later. He's so good at charming people, he's even clingier than a little mistress. The three of you can try them on first. It's okay if you don't like them. We have a camera in the store. Even if you don't buy them, a photo as a souvenir would be nice. Since she put it that way, Wen Ning and I couldn't refuse. And ever since Tong Tong came back from the future, we really hadn't taken a picture with our daughter. 10 minutes later, I stood in front of the mirror in the main hall after changing. After a while longer, Wen Ning led Tong Tong out of the women's changing room. She hadn't put her hair up. The hair tie was simply looped around her wrist, making her whole aura suddenly much more relaxed. Quote, "Don't look at me." When Ning avoided my gaze, she paused. "That's nice. So, when you married me, did you wear your hair like this at home just to make it easier to take off your clothes?" Of course, I didn't say that kind of rubbish that would get me murdered by Wen Ning on the spot. The sales clerk immediately set up the camera with delight. "Hurry up and come take a picture. You don't look like you're playing dress-up. You really look like a family." The three of us stood in front of the lens and were frozen in a perfectly composed photograph. Soon, the sales clerk sent the photo to both our WeChat accounts. I looked at the photo on my phone and didn't say anything, but in the end, I bought the set of matching pajamas. Wen Ning also received the photo, but she was a little hesitant. Did I look that happy when I took the picture? After thinking for a moment, she created a new album on her phone, put the photo in it, and named the album Tong Tong. After doing this, she put her phone, screen side in, into her pocket. But when she looked up, she saw me walking ahead, holding the skipping Tong Tong's hand with one hand, and carrying all the things we bought for our daughter with the other. This scene made Wen Ning pause in a daze. After 2 seconds, she took out her phone again, slowly deleted the word Tong Tong, and changed the album name to Tong Tong and Shu Che. After lunch, the three of us arrived at a residential complex. Wen Ning instructed me, "When the time comes, just say Tong Tong is my little sister, and I asked you for this favor. In short, don't let your aunt and uncle find out." I nodded. "Don't worry." Then I walked up and rang the doorbell. Soon, my aunt, Shu Ling, opened the door. She reached out and poked my cheek. "Ache, what made you suddenly decide to visit? Do you want Auntie to take you out to play?" I looked a bit helpless. "Auntie, you're an adult. Don't always act like a little girl." Shu Ling put her hands on her hips, just about to retort, when she saw the big and small beauties standing behind me. Before she could even process my relationship with Wen Ning, she saw the little girl smiling at her older brother. It turns out Daddy brought her to see little Grandma. Seeing the deep dimples on her face, Shu Ling's expression slowly froze. Why does she look so much like one of us, a descendant of the old Shu family? Thinking this, her face immediately darkened. "Is she your dad's illegitimate child?" My eyes lit up. "Auntie, what are you thinking? Could my dad give birth to such a beautiful child?" Hearing this, Shu Ling's expression gradually softened. "You're right, she's too beautiful to be one of us. They are. My friend and her little sister." "Auntie, I have something serious to talk to you about today. Don't let us stand outside." Seeing this, Shu Ling quickly stepped aside and led us into the house. Soon, Wen Ning, holding Tong Tong's hand, sat on the sofa without a word, only daring to look at her toes. "Have some water," Shu Ling said with a smile. "This girl is really too beautiful. Ache sure knows how to pick 'em." "Thank you, Auntie Shu," Wen Ning replied reservedly, like a girl visiting her boyfriend's home for the first time. Seeing this, Shu Ling immediately found an excuse to take me to the room, giving Wen Ning space to relax. After we left, Tong Tong finally couldn't help but blink her big eyes. "Mommy, why won't you let Tong Tong call her little grandma? Little grandma's so nice to me." Wen Ning stroked her little head. "Because little grandma isn't your little grandma yet. She will be in more than 10 years. Tong Tong will understand when she grows up." Arriving in an environment that is both familiar and strange is Tong Tong's misfortune. She knows everyone, but the people who once loved her don't know her yet. On the other side, Shu Ling looked at me judgmentally. "Tell me, Who are those two girls, the big one and the small one? I waved my hand, looking at her sincerely. Auntie, you might not believe it, but that little girl is my daughter. Hearing this, Xu Lingling immediately rolled her eyes at me. Go play! I check on you every week. You hadn't even started puberty when she was born. I scratched my head awkwardly. Auntie did like pulling my pants down when I was a kid. Just then, Xu Lingling put her hands on her hips and pressed on. So who is that little girl? Tell me quick. Wen Ning's little sister. She was kidnapped by human traffickers shortly after birth and was only recently found. She doesn't have a hukou, so she can't go to school, understand? Isn't Brother Meng at the police station? She asked me to come and ask. Hearing this, Xu Lingling immediately grabbed my ear. Brother Meng, what? Don't be disrespectful. He's your uncle-in-law now. I looked disgruntled. But I used to call him Brother Meng. I can't change it. Auntie, you're robbing the cradle. My uncle-in-law, Meng Yufei, is 7 years younger than my aunt. After hearing what I said, Xu Lingling's face immediately flushed. Robbing the cradle what? What do you know about love, you little brat? She said, waving her hand and quickly skipping the topic. But since it's her family's business, why are you so upset? I reached out. Don't ask about dog-licking business. Hearing this, Xu Lingling looked at me with some confusion. Seeing this, I sighed helplessly. Fine, she's my girlfriend. Xu Lingling's face softened. Why didn't you say so earlier? Achei, you've grown up. You have such a beautiful girlfriend. Wait, aren't you about to take the college entrance exam? I knew what she was thinking and quickly shushed her. So don't tell my parents, Auntie. And don't say anything outside later. Girls are sensitive about their reputation. If it weren't for her sister, she wouldn't have come here today. Xu Lingling hummed, then thought about it seriously. But no matter how I look at her, she looks like one of the old Xu family's offspring. See, I told you. I think we're fated, I quickly said. By the way, Auntie, can this be done? Xu Lingling didn't answer. She frowned and continued to ask, what about her family? Why is only the sister bringing the little sister over? I sighed. Her mother passed away, and her father remarried. Her stepmother is, well, you know, Auntie, that's a poor little girl. But is there any documentation to prove the little girl's identity? I shook my head. We have a DNA test, but we can't just show it to anyone. Seeing this, Xu Lingling said very certainly, if there's no documentation, it definitely can't be done. You don't even need to ask your uncle-in-law. Following my aunt's explanation, I understood. This problem truly had no immediate solution. When the two of us came out of the room, Wen Ning was still sitting properly on the sofa. Seeing us, she looked a little nervous. As for Tong Tong, having waited for a while, she had fallen asleep in her mother's arms. Seeing this, I lowered my voice. Auntie, there's one more thing. Aren't you a Chinese teacher at Chaojiang Primary School? Can this little girl attend classes first? She can't stay at home forever at this age. Xu Lingling shook her head. No, that requires guardian proof too, and I'm currently on leave. I haven't been to school for almost a week, she said, stroking her flat stomach with a blissful look. Auntie is pregnant. I'm sorry, I might not be able to help you, young lady. I apologize for the wasted trip. It's okay, Wen Ning said softly. I'll think of other ways. Seeing this, Xu Lingling's curiosity grew stronger. Why does it feel like they're really raising a child? Why do I feel like I'm talking to my niece-in-law? Just then, I spoke up. Auntie, I just told you about her family situation. How about this? Since you're a teacher, could you help teach her to read and write during the day and take her out to play? We'll pick her up in the evening. Xu Lingling agreed without thinking. Sure, your uncle-in-law is very busy and I have nothing to do at home by myself. However, as she spoke, her eyes never left Wen Ning, who was sitting on the sofa as if she were talking to her. Sensing her gaze, Wen Ning's earlobes slowly turned red. She felt that ever since we came out, Xu Lingling's gaze had been strange. Thinking this, she lowered her eyes and said softly, Thank you, Auntie Xu. Xu Lingling just smiled. It's nothing. I'm very good with children, don't worry. Just then, Meng Yufei walked in from outside, carrying several bags. Achei is here. Stay for dinner tonight, I smiled. Congrats, Brother Meng. In the blink of an eye, you're almost a father. I'll be waiting to hold your baby. Meng Yufei was about to reply when he suddenly noticed Wen Ning and Tong Tong on the sofa. He looked confused. Are you Achei's friend? Wen Ning slowly said, Hello, Uncle. Auntie, we should head back now. I still have tests to finish. I'll bring Tong Tong over tomorrow morning. Hearing this, I picked up the sleeping Tong Tong and left. After seeing us off, Xu Lingling briefly explained our purpose to Meng Yufei. Meng Yufei thought it was outrageous. No way! I need to grab that kid and question him. Forget the little girl. Xu Che is about to take the college entrance exam. What's he doing dating now? Xu Lingling grabbed his arm, a little angry. Come back here. A Che is an adult. What's the big deal? Besides, you were still a student when we started dating, she said, immediately twisting her husband's ear. When you were climbing into my bed on weekends, why didn't the police catch you, Officer Meng? Meng Yufei was flustered, his whole face turning red. That's different. You were the one who initiated it. On the way back, I repeated my aunt's explanation to Wen Ning. Don't overthink it. It's not that it can't be done, just that the time isn't right. Your grades are so good you can get into the best universities in the country. Don't let this affect you. Wen Ning glanced at me. What about you? I smiled. Is a top student at a prestigious university going to discriminate against a double first-class undergraduate? Hearing this, Wen Ning turned her head away, not wanting to talk to me. But after a while, she turned back, her voice cool. When we get back, bring me your last monthly exam paper. We arrived home around 4 p.m. The little girl was still half asleep, so I just put her on the bed. Wen Ning didn't waste time, taking my paper and looking at it carefully. After a long time, her expression slowly relaxed. It's fine. Only English and Chinese are a bit weak. They can be improved with some effort. Thinking this, she stood up and put my test paper in her backpack. I'll take the paper back and look over it closely. I'll select some practice questions for you and bring them to you on Monday. Hearing this, I, who had been lazily scrolling on my phone, finally looked up. Top student Wen, why are you so concerned about my grades? What if your own grades drop? Wen Ning paused her action of packing her bag. Then let them drop a little. If I score too high, I'm afraid you won't be able to catch up. My expression froze for a moment. Then I laughed again. No need. Didn't I catch you even when I scored over 500? Wen Ning let out a faint humph. I was talking about scores. With that, she left with her canvas bag. 10 minutes later, Wen Ning sat alone at the back of the bus. She looked at the rabbit in her hand, somewhat lost in thought. Everything that had happened these past few days had left her dizzy. In Tong Tong's description, her future was so beautiful that any girl would be envious. Even now, she felt a sense of unreality. She didn't know if this guy, the one she might not fall in love with until she was 27 or 28, was the one she was fated to love no matter when they met. But Wen Ning was still very happy about it. Wen Ning squeezed the doll's ear. Mom, after all these years, is there still someone else who would give me a little rabbit besides you? Half an hour later, Wen Ning stood by the door for a while before taking out her key and opening the door. But as soon as she stepped inside, she felt the atmosphere was off. Only her stepmother, Xiao Ziqin, was sitting in the living room. Wen Chong's room door was tightly shut and the TV volume was very low. Hearing the door open, Xiao Ziqin looked back at her. Xiao Ning, come sit. Wen Ning hesitated, but eventually sat obediently on the sofa. Xiao Ziqin muted the TV completely and looked Wen Ning up and down, her nominal eldest daughter. I remember you told me this morning that you were going to the library to study, but your sister came back at noon and said you were actually out with a boy. Wen Ning did not deny it, nodding in response. Xiao Ziqin hadn't expected her to admit it and fell into a rare silence. After a long pause, she continued, I heard from Chung Chung that the boy is a bit shady. Xiao Ning, how can you be friends with a boy like that? No, he is not a shady boy. Wen Ning's tone was unusually serious, instead of her usual subservience. Xiao Ziqin frowned, displeased with her attitude. I haven't told your father about this yet. Don't worry him, you are not allowed to see that boy again, do you understand? Quote, my grades are very good and stable, and I'm an adult. I have the ability to discern what kind of people are suitable for friends. Xiao Ziqin was genuinely angry now. Are you incapable of understanding what's good for you? I'm afraid you'll be deceived, understand? After the college entrance exam, you can go wherever you want, but not now. Mom, I'm not your mother, and I'm not obligated to indulge you in everything, you know that? Xiao Ziqin blurted it out in a fit of pique without thinking. But after saying it, she suddenly realized how inappropriate the remark was. Her mouth moved, but she ultimately said no more. The two of them sat in silence on the sofa. Aside from the silent images on the TV, Everything seemed to be paused. Finally, Wen Ning stood up, hugging her backpack. Please don't be angry. Take care of yourself. I definitely won't disgrace you and Dad on the college entrance exam. Hearing her change the address from you to you, formal, Xiao Ziqin wanted to say something, but the words caught in her throat. She knew how hurtful her remark had been. She watched as Wen Ning walked into her room and quietly closed the door. That evening, I spent 4 hours explaining time travel to Tong Tong. To make it clear, I even showed her many episodes of the Mada Blue Fatty Doraemon. The next morning, when I asked Tong Tong, she said excitedly, Tong Tong knows. I'm Doraemon. I came back from the future in a time machine to help Daddy and Mommy realize their wishes. I won't tell anyone but Daddy and Mommy. I smiled and nodded, then took her toward my aunt's house. Once inside, Su Lingling looked behind me curiously. Why are you alone? Where is that girl? I said calmly. Her home is quite far, so she entrusted the little girl to me last night. Little Grandma, good morning, Tong Tong greeted. Hearing Tong Tong's greeting, Shu Lingling was surprised. Did you teach her that? I laughed and explained. I didn't know what to tell her to call you, so I just let her follow my daughter's lead. Shu Lingling thought about it and didn't mind. The address sounded pretty nice, and she felt a natural affinity for the little girl. Tong Tong, be a good girl when you play with little Grandma today. I'll pick you up tonight. Shu Miao Tong gave a sweet, and then obediently walked to Shu Lingling's side and held her hand. Auntie, please take some time to teach her to read and write and stuff. This child is at primary school age. Shu Lingling nodded with a smile, looking down to see the little girl looking up at her. Noticing little Grandma's gaze, Shu Miao Tong smiled sweetly. Little Grandma, Tong Tong's grades are very good. The teacher gives me little flower stickers every day. Hearing this, Shu Lingling couldn't help but turn and stare at me. Didn't you say she was kidnapped by human traffickers? She went to school? I awkwardly threw up my hands. Maybe the human traffickers also knew the importance of compulsory education. Shu Lingling gave me a look. You look more like a human trafficker. All right, go to school. After I left, my aunt smiled and looked at the little girl. Tong Tong, what's your full name? Little Grandma, my name is Shu Miao Tong. Hearing this, Shu Lingling's eyes instantly widened. Tong Tong is also surnamed Shu. Thinking this, she carefully examined the little girl again, finding her more and more similar to how I looked as a child. Her eyes, however, resembled the girl who came with us the day before. Considering a certain possibility, Shu Lingling suddenly felt it was absurd. On the other side, as soon as I got back to school, I received a message from Wen Ning. I probably can't come over to your place this week. Please apologize to Tong Tong for me. I've selected some practice problems for you, along with some things I've organized. When are you free for me to give them to you? A top student is a top student. She doesn't delay anything. I typed a reply. After school then. Wen Ning instantly replied, No, my dad is picking me up today. It's probably her stepsister who went back and told some nonsense. Thinking this, I replied again. I'll find a girl to come and get it. I put my phone away without waiting for her reply. But when I looked up, I saw Li Yu next to me, staring intently at me. Seeing my gaze, she awkwardly scratched her head. I didn't mean to. I wanted to ask you a math question, but you were so focused I couldn't help but look twice. I waved my hand. It's fine, as long as Chen Hao, that nagging woman, didn't see. Sister Yu, why don't you help me go upstairs and find Wen Ning? She has something to give me. Li Yu raised an eyebrow. Did you two sleep together? The words were barely out of my mouth when I knew I'd messed up, and I quickly corrected myself. No, she's just a normal friend, but Li Yu clearly didn't believe me. If she's a normal friend, then I'll mention it to Chen Hao. I panicked. No way! Li Yu smirked. Normal friend, is she? Seeing this, I quickly played my trump card. Sister Yu, don't worry about my dog-licking business. Lie. Yu immediately frowned. Dog-licking? But your relationship looks pretty good. I answered calmly. Doesn't dog-licking have different levels? Most are not worthy to sit at the table, but occasionally one can get leftovers. Although she thought it was ridiculous, Li Yu still kindly reminded me, Ache, dog-licking, and nobleman sit at the same table. You should be aware. I replied. I told him that, but he wouldn't listen. Besides, she's a girl. How embarrassing would it be if people knew she was chasing me? Hearing this, Lee Yu returned to her seat with a darkened face. You are so shameless. But in the end, she was very generous and helped. But when she saw the practice tests Wen Ning handed over, she couldn't help but complain. Ache, there's really no need for this. If you want to go to the same university, Ache's efforts are useless. Wen Ning was silent. She had been secretly observing the girl. Finally, she couldn't help but ask, Are you Shu Che's friend? Lee Yu smiled and nodded. We're childhood friends, I guess. We've been playing together since primary school. But Ache has definitely changed recently. Lee Yu lamented. He never used to study. He'd just sleep through morning self-study. I don't know what happened the past couple of days. He comes in and reads and memorizes words. Wen Ning didn't speak, but the corner of her lips unconsciously curved up. He was probably motivated by what I said about being afraid he wouldn't catch up. Then, Lee Yu prepared to leave. Before she left, she looked at Wen Ning with some envy and longing. Damn you, Ache. You're truly the worst. For the next few days, Wen Ning really didn't come to my house. She only occasionally organized practice problems and knowledge points she deemed important, and had Lee Yu bring them to me. Occasionally, I would see her below the academic building after school. She looked a little tired, as if her family was keeping a close watch on her. However, she called every evening to hear Tong Tong's voice. Little Grandma taught Tong Tong to write Daddy and Mommy's names today. Wen Ning looked at the photo on WeChat. It was neat, childish block handwriting. Tong Tong is so great, she said, her voice softening, clearly seeing that Tong Tong had practiced for a long time. But Shu Che, won't your aunt suspect anything? I smiled. It's nothing. Auntie asked a few things, but Tong Tong was very cautious and didn't give anything away. But after saying that, I scratched my head a bit. The first night I went to pick up Tong Tong, my aunt's look had been slightly subtle and hesitant. Wen Ning saved the photo and put it in her private album. Just then, Tong Tong sniffled. Mommy, when are you coming to see Tong Tong? I miss you so much. I miss Tong Tong very much too. Just give Mommy a little more time, okay? Wen Ning's voice was quiet, unsure how to comfort her daughter. After the incident on Saturday, her father had talked to her once. His tone wasn't harsh, but the meaning was clear. He hoped she wouldn't get too close to any boys until after college. Shu Che, Just as Wen Ning was about to say something, her father, Wen Qiming, knocked on her bedroom door. Ning, go to bed early. Don't be on the phone late at night. Talk about anything important tomorrow morning. Hearing this, I whispered, Hang up. Tong Tong is fine here. Take care of yourself. With that, I hung up first. Wen Ning then put down her phone and turned around. Okay, Dad, she replied. This tense life lasted for a whole week. It was Friday night. Wen Ning came home from school, but found no one in the living room. She desperately wanted to hear Tong Tong's voice. However, I hadn't replied to her messages since yesterday, and even the calls weren't going through. Can I come see Tong Tong this weekend? But there was still no reply from me. This made Wen Ning uneasy. Just then, Wen Qiming called her. Ning, are you home? Today is your birthday. Your gift is on your desk. Happy birthday. Wen Qiming's voice sounded a bit tired. Only then did Wen Ning belatedly remember that today seemed to be her birthday. Thank you, Dad. After asking, Wen Ning learned that her family had gone to the hospital to accompany her stepsister and wouldn't be back until very late. After hanging up, Wen Ning went back to her room. She first put the small white shoe gift into the shoe cabinet, then picked up her phone again. The chat box was still empty. She typed another message. Can I come over now? After sending the text, Wen Ning had no other thoughts. She sat on the bed, hugging her knees, staring blankly at the phone in front of her. The recent nervous tension had made her weary. Without realizing it, she leaned against the headboard and fell asleep. When the phone's ringing woke her, the sky outside the window had completely darkened. Her eyes squinted, and she groggily picked up the buzzing phone. What are you doing? I chastised her flatly over the phone. What are you doing, top student Wen? I called you several times and you didn't answer. Wen Ning rubbed her eyes hard, feeling somewhat unhappy that I seemed to be scolding her. I accidentally fell asleep just now, but you're the one who hasn't replied to my messages. What time is it? Hurry and get up, Tong Tong. Be careful. Don't wobble when you walk. Immediately, Tong Tong's slightly annoyed, soft voice came through the phone. I know! I then asked her if she could come out now. Hearing this, Wen Ning lay on the bed, confused. Where are you? I chuckled. Hurry up, wash your face, get dressed, and come downstairs to wait for us. After hanging up, Wen Ning quickly got up, tidied herself up, and rushed downstairs. She soon saw Tong Tong and me sitting on a long bench by the flower bed, talking. The warm yellow light of the street lamp shone down, stretching our shadows and filling the scene with a cozy atmosphere. Wen Ning watched us for a moment, spaced out. Tong Tong spotted her immediately. Mommy! The little girl skipped over, extending her chubby hands. Happy birthday! May every one of Mommy's birthdays be as young as yesterday. Wen Ning hugged her almost instinctively, still a bit stunned. I stood nearby, holding a transparent birthday gift box. Happy birthday! I bought you a cake. Wen Ning was surprised. How did you know it was my birthday today? I smiled and explained. Tong Tong told me. The little girl insisted on celebrating your birthday since yesterday morning. She's been a handful for the last 2 days. Wen Ning didn't speak, but unconsciously held her daughter tighter. Tong Tong, don't you blame Mommy for not coming to see you for so long? Shu Miao Tong looked confused and let out a little, But Tong Tong came to see Mommy, looking at her daughter's innocent and sweet face. Wen Ning's previous emotions were gradually replaced by another kind of feeling. It was like something she had never dared to hope for had suddenly appeared before her. Wen Ning's nose stung, and her lips trembled slightly, but she couldn't speak. Shu Miaotong, like a kitten, rubbed her soft cheek against Wen Ning's. Mommy, you have to blow out the candles before eating the cake. She pulled out a packet of small colored candles from her pocket. Daddy said Tong Tong is Doraemon, here to help Daddy and Mommy realize their wishes. Wen Ning lowered her eyes and gently sniffed. Mommy is going to make a wish. Seeing this, I placed the box on the bench and opened it. Inside was a small cake, shaped like her favorite rabbit head. It looked a bit childish and strange, with 2 red strawberries for eyes and a carrot for a nose. Happy birthday, Wen Ning, was written on the cake in wobbly cream. Looking like Tong Tong had written it. Wen Ning couldn't tear her eyes away. Her vision felt blurry. She stared at the cake unblinkingly, like a little girl with a new toy. After a long time, Wen Ning finally asked slowly, So you can bake a cake? I immediately denied it. Don't be ridiculous, I can't. This was bought from a store. I'm a grown man, I don't have the patience to bake a cake. Why did you use a carrot for the nose? I couldn't find anything else. I told you, it's store-bought. Wen Ning laughed. What store sells such an ugly cake? She suddenly wished that everything in front of her could be slowed down like a film, frame by frame, and saved forever. Perhaps in the future, she would receive other birthday cakes. But she would never forget the very ugly cake she received on her 18th birthday. I took the candles from Tong Tong and helped light them and place them on the cake, against the street lamp light. The candle flames were very faint, flickering, as if they might go out at any moment, but they still illuminated Tong Tong and Wen Ning, who were kneeling in front of the candles, and me standing beside them. Wen Ning suddenly felt a little reluctant to cut it. She asked softly, Shuche, can I take a picture first before I make a wish? I naturally didn't refuse and told her to take as many as she liked. Finally, Wen Ning used her phone camera to record the unsophisticated cake and carefully placed the photo into her private album. She suddenly noticed that in just a short time, her album was filling up with pictures. Tong Tong shook her mother's hand pleadingly. Mommy, make a wish quickly! It will be too late if the candles go out. Wen Ning snapped back to attention and quickly closed her eyes, making a wish she had never dared to hope for. I want to study hard and go to my dream university. I want to have a life that truly belongs to me. I want to meet people who love me, meet someone I can love, and have a real home that is mine. When she opened her eyes again, Tong Tong puffed out her cheeks and blew out the candles in front of her with a whoosh. The little girl patted her chest. Phew, that was close. They almost went out. Wen Ning couldn't help but smile, stroking her daughter's head but unable to say a word. Mommy, Tong Tong will cut the cake, okay? Tong Tong, be careful not to cut his eyes. A few minutes later, the mother and daughter sat on the bench, eating the cake. I don't really like sweets, so I picked up the carrot, sat beside them, and watched them while nibbling on it. Suddenly, I casually asked, "What did you wish for? Tell me." Wen Ning subconsciously turned her head to look at me. "But won't it not come true if I say it? Do you really think you're still a little girl in kindergarten?" I followed up with a tired yawn, blurting out, "If you don't say your wish, how can I help you realize it?" Wen Ning was stunned. She subconsciously swallowed the cake in her mouth, feeling a sudden heat behind her ears that spread to her cheeks. After a moment, she asked uncertainly in a low voice, "What did you just say?" I realized what I'd said. I chomped down on the carrot. I said, "If you don't say it, how will this Doraemon, who came back from the future in a time machine, help you realize it?" Wen Ning murmured, "Oh," and lowered her head, quietly poking a piece of cake with her fork and putting it in her mouth. The sweet, smooth taste instantly melted. Seeing that she was reluctant to talk, I didn't press further, just idly watching Tong Tong stuff cake into her mouth. After an unknown amount of time, the girl's voice sounded in my ear. "My wish is that next birthday, I can still make a wish in front of the candles, just like this." Finally, after finishing the cake, Wen Ning suddenly remembered something. "Right, Chuche, do you plan to date in college?" I was a bit surprised. "Why do you ask that?" Wen Ning pursed her lips. "You know that Tong Tong's appearance was an accident, but she is indeed our daughter. So before Tong Tong is old enough to understand, I hope you won't get a girlfriend." I didn't speak, just looked at her with interest. Wen Ning met my gaze without flinching. "Of course, I'm not trying to stop you from dating. I just hope you try not to hurt Tong Tong's feelings." I nodded. "That's fair and reasonable. I can accept that." But before Wen Ning could sigh in relief, I suddenly changed the subject. "But that puts me in a very difficult position." Wen Ning immediately fixed her eyes on me. "Difficult? Are you going to cheat on Tong Tong behind her back?" Seeing this, I chuckled. "I don't mind myself, but my mom has issued a strict order. I must bring a girl home from college to meet her, as a daughter-in-law of the old Shu family. Otherwise, I might not even be allowed through the door for the new year. What should I do?" Wen Ning's breathing hitched. She felt like something was strange, but she couldn't pinpoint the loophole in my words. She slowly looked away, silent, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. "Top student Wen, tell me, what should I do?" Wen Ning was stifled, and after a long moment she whispered, "Then what can you do?" "Exactly. What can I do? Or else..." I looked her up and down, a thoughtful expression on my face. "Or else what?" Wen Ning's brow twitched rapidly. "Or else what? Finish your sentence." Ever since Tong Tong arrived, this topic had been sensitive, but now it felt like something was about to break. Wen Ning felt a sudden panic. After several minutes, my teasing voice finally rang out. "Or else, I'll just bring Chen Hao home?" Anyway, my mom has always suspected we were a couple. Wen Ning's expression immediately chilled. She certainly knew who Chen Hao was, but as she turned to look over, she met my playful gaze. "What were you thinking just now?" Only then did Wen Ning suddenly realize that I had been teasing her the whole time. Wen Ning's face was stubbornly red, and her temper flared a little. "I wasn't thinking anything just now." "Is that so? Then why is your face red?" "It's the cold wind. I'm not blushing." I nodded. "You're right. Maybe I saw wrong." Wen Ning was instantly covered in imaginary black lines. How could such an annoying person exist in this world? Then she pressed her lips together and took a deep breath. "Tong Tong, tell Mommy the truth. Does Mommy in the future have an impulse toward domestic violence?" Seeing this, I immediately backed off. My figure gradually moved away. "Why are you still thinking about hitting people? I was just joking with you." Wen Ning held Tong Tong's hand and walked beside me, her face still tense, though she didn't seem terribly angry. She just felt inexplicably bothered by the man who had teased her. 15 minutes later, at the complex entrance, I held Tong Tong's hand and waved. "Don't walk any further. This is it. We're going back. You should rest early too." After saying that, I paused for a moment before continuing. "Don't let Tong Tong worry. You can talk to me if anything is bothering you." Wen Ning nodded. Her emotions hadn't been particularly stable these past few days, and she wasn't surprised that I had noticed. Then she bent down and stroked Tong Tong's head. Tong Tong, listen to Daddy and be happy every day. Yu Miaotong loudly agreed, but she still sniffled reluctantly. Mommy, will you come home with Tong Tong tomorrow? And Daddy misses Mommy very much too. In the past, no matter how busy Daddy was at work, he would come home to pick up Mommy every day. Hearing this, Wen Ning subconsciously looked up and my finger, which was typing on my phone, noticeably paused. However, I didn't say anything, acting as if nothing had happened, and continued to reply to a WeChat message. Shu Miaotong's eyes slowly reddened. Tong Tong has been a good girl and very obedient. It's just, I miss Mommy very much. I miss her every day. Wen Ning was heartbroken. She couldn't help but pinch her daughter's little face. Tong Tong, don't cry. Mommy promises. Mommy will definitely go home tomorrow. We got home at 9 p.m. I helped Tong Tong wash up and tucked her into bed. The girl was probably exhausted, and she was soon sound asleep, hugging her pillow. Seeing this, I left the room with my laptop, planning to find some side jobs online. After all, I couldn't always rely on my mother for money. Since I had been using computers since childhood, I figured helping some of those clueless college students would be fine. 3 hours later, looking at the 1,000 yen deposited into my Alipay account, I smiled contentedly. There were plenty of desperate college students now. With this kind of income, supporting a Tong Tong shouldn't be a problem. The next morning, it took me a full half hour to coax my pouting daughter through washing up. By the time Tong Tong finished her rice rolls, Wen Ning arrived. I raised an eyebrow in confusion. How are you able to come out today? Dad took my stepmother and stepsister back to our hometown. They'll be back tomorrow. Oh, is there anything left in the fridge? I'll make Tong Tong something delicious for lunch. I thought for a moment. It seemed like there wasn't much left at home, so I got up, ready to go to the supermarket downstairs. I'll go with you. Bring Tong Tong too. Let's see what the little girl wants to eat. 10 minutes later, Tong Tong skipped ahead. Daddy, Tong Tong wants chips. I smiled indulgently. I had just picked up a bag of chips and was about to put it in the cart when Wen Ning snatched it away. Her face was tense. Why are you buying her this? I hesitated. But Tong Tong likes to eat them. Just because she likes them, you buy them? Too many snacks aren't good for children. They can easily get fat and it's not healthy. Wen Ning then turned and put the chips back on the shelf. Tong Tong looked very wronged, but it was clear that her mother's stern face held some power over her. So she tugged at my sleeve and started to whine. Daddy! Tong Tong wants them, okay? Daddy is the best! Before she could finish, Wen Ning stepped forward and pinched her little face. Tong Tong, don't flirt with Daddy. With that, she took Tong Tong's hand and walked ahead. Shu Che, you just push the cart. I'll decide what to buy. I was silent. My mind was fiercely debating. 2.5 seconds later, I decisively grabbed a few bags of chips and put them in the cart. Seeing Wen Ning's icy glare, I raised an eyebrow. I'm buying them for myself. I'm not Tong Tong. You can't control what I eat. You like chips too? I shook my head. No. Wen Ning was so exasperated, she almost laughed. She felt that sometimes I was quite petty, as if I had some kind of obsession with family hierarchy, wanting to prove that I was the head of the household. After a moment's thought, Wen Ning patiently explained, when you eat them, Tong Tong will be tempted. And you spoil her so much. If she sweet-talks you, you'll definitely give her some. I nodded with a mischievous smile. It's fine. I'll eat them in front of Tong Tong later. We'll see if I share any with her. Hearing this, Tong Tong pouted, thinking that Daddy was as bad as Mommy. Wen Ning was also a little exasperated. Why is this guy acting like a child too? However, after this period of getting along, she understood my personality somewhat. I was the typical type who responded well to gentleness, but not to force. Thinking this, she took a deep breath and spoke in the warmest tone she could manage. Shu Che, if you want anything, I'll cook it for you for lunch. Let's not buy chips, okay? My mind instantly blanked. My face quickly turned pink. Then, I silently took all the chips out and put them back on the shelf. What you said just now makes sense. After we got home with the groceries, Wen Ning capably tied on an apron. I'll cook. Go play with Tong Tong for a bit. Since she had finally come over, I didn't say much. But as soon as I started watching TV with Tong Tong, my phone suddenly rang. The caller ID was Lin Hui. I glanced at Wen Ning in the kitchen and answered casually. Mom, I'm hanging up. The first sentence almost made Lin Hui lose it. You brat, how dare you talk to me like that? Get up quickly, I'm downstairs. I was instantly stunned. Why didn't you tell me beforehand? Lin Hui scoffed. Do I have to report to you when I come to see you? We made dumplings at home today, so I brought some for you, to save you from eating takeout all the time. It's not a holiday today. Why are you making dumplings at home? I guessed she had specially made them for me and seized the opportunity on the weekend to visit her son, whom she hadn't seen in a while. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but feel a little touched. Mom, why don't you turn around and go back now? You still have time. Lin Hui was speechless after hearing what I said. You little rascal, are you even speaking like a human being? No, I'm not home today. Stop trying to trick me and open the door. I can hear the sound of the cartoon. I fell silent. I looked at Tong Tong on the sofa, then at Wen Ning cooking in the kitchen. I felt a sense of being caught in the act. Just as I was frozen, Lin Hui outside started knocking on the door. Open the door now! Hearing the noise, Wen Ning came out and looked at me questioningly. I spread my hands helplessly. My mom is here. Hearing this, Wen Ning's face finally changed. She looked down at her clothes. What should we do? I answered honestly. I don't know. Maybe you should just act naturally and say you're a classmate visiting. A few seconds later, Lin Hui walked in, carrying a bag with a look of disdain. Why did it take you so long to open the door for your mother? You didn't just wake up, did you? What time is it? Don't tell me you were up to something all night. Hearing this, my face was instantly covered in black lines, but I didn't dare say anything more. I quickly took the dumplings and pushed Lin Hui's shoulder to turn her around. Okay, Mom, you can go back now. The dumplings are delicious. Seeing this, Lin Hui was genuinely angry. You little rascal, are you not even letting me into your own home now? Now I had no choice. Lin Hui changed into a pair of slippers and walked into the living room, still complaining. You're a grown man and still watching cartoons. However, before she could finish, the sudden silence left Lin Hui stunned. Wen Ning stood at the kitchen doorway, wiping her hands on her apron, looking a little embarrassed. Hello, Auntie. Lin Hui remained rooted to the spot, seemingly confused as to why this beautiful girl dressed like a cook was in her son's home. She thought it would have been more reasonable to see Chen Hao, the little cook, emerge from the kitchen. Lin Hui's eyes instinctively glanced behind Wen Ning. The table was laden with dishes and a rich aroma permeated the house. On the sofa, a very cute little girl was curled up, giggling while watching cartoons. Lin Hui was even more bewildered. Did I time travel? Why does this look like a family of 3? Seeing this, I interrupted her. Mom, she's saying hello to you. Lin Hui quickly snapped back to attention. Hello, but you two are. Wen Ning felt a little nervous. I'm Shu Che's classmate, and that's my little sister. We came to play together. Lin Hui was a little confused, thinking to herself, Classmates? Classmates come to a doghouse to play and cook for the dog? She looked again at Wen Ning's delicate face, and the recognition slowly dawned on her. Young lady, haven't I seen you somewhere before? I reminded her. Mom, she's Wen Ning. You saw her at the commendation ceremony when you came for the parent-teacher conference. You even told me she was beautiful, with long legs and a slim waist, and you kept mentioning it all the way home. Now Lin Hui remembered completely. She had seen the girl once from afar on the stage. Young lady, are you the one who ranked 6th in your grade? Wen Ning nodded, a little shyly. Lin Hui was excited. She had thought at the time, if this girl were my daughter-in-law, how cute and beautiful would my granddaughter be? But now, such a beautiful girl was cooking for me at home. Wait, are these two dating? Thinking this, her expression instantly turned grim. You have 4 months until the Gaokao college entrance exam. Why are you wasting time now? Her tone suddenly became very serious. How can you be friends with this kind of person? Even after the Gaokao, you shouldn't look for someone like him. I immediately frowned. Mom, how can you say that about her? But Lin Hui rolled her eyes, looking at me with disdain. Can you go look in the mirror? Who said I was talking about her? I was talking about you. My face instantly darkened even more. Is this still my cute and kind birth mother? Lin Hui turned around and advised Wen Ning earnestly. Young lady, your grades are so good and you're so pretty. You have a great future ahead of you. You need to focus on preparing for the Gaokao right now and not think about anything else. You have high standards. Don't let this little brat deceive you." Wen Ning's expression was awkward. "Auntie, Shu Che is a very good person." Be honest, she hadn't experienced a mother like this before. Although every word wasn't pleasant to hear, Wen Ning could feel that the relationship between the mother and son was actually very good. "He's a very cute auntie. He hasn't bullied you, has he? I mean, hasn't he been handsy with you?" Wen Ning shook her head gently. "No, he hasn't." Seeing this, I muttered in dissatisfaction. "We have a mole among us. Why do you dislike me so much?" Lin Hui looked even more disgusted, sneering. "Don't you remember all the awful things you did in junior high? And you expect me to look at you kindly?" I waved my hand. "That's still the brat you gave birth to. Setting aside the facts, you have half the responsibility." Lin Hui didn't bother with me, and smiled at Wen Ning. "Young lady, I brought him some dumplings. We can eat some together for lunch." Then she looked at Tong Tong. "What a cute little girl, as pretty as your older sister." Hearing the praise, Tong Tong peeked out from behind her mother. "Grandma is pretty too." Lin Hui's smile didn't fade. "Grandma?" Wen Ning hugged Tong Tong and explained, "She's very friendly. She likes to call pretty aunties Grandma." This made Lin Hui's smile even brighter. However, her eyes lingered on Tong Tong's face for a long time. She felt like this little girl was also a little familiar, as if she had seen her somewhere before. "I didn't come for anything else today, just to bring food," Lin Hui said, returning to the doorway. "You two have fun. I'm going back first." She felt that her presence here was making Wen Ning nervous, like a little daughter-in-law meeting her mother-in-law for the first time. Hearing this, Wen Ning felt a little bad. She whispered, "Auntie, stay and eat with us." After saying this, she blushed. The words sounded as if she were the lady of the house. Lin Hui quickly waved her hand. No, I already ate before I came." Now Wen Ning couldn't say anything more. Her hands rested on her apron, looking incredibly docile. I glanced at her, suddenly thinking she looked especially like the Wen Ning in Tong Tong's photos, a gentlewoman who immediately seemed like a good wife and mother. Then I pouted. "You just got here, why are you leaving already? You drove all this way just to deliver dumplings. If you wanted to see me, you could have just called, and I'd go back." Lin Hui said nonchalantly, "You only stay for one night when you go home, and you have classes on Monday. It's too much trouble going back and forth." I felt a little helpless. "And coming here isn't troublesome for you? You can mind your own business." Lin Hui wanted to give me some advice, but she thought it would sound sentimental. In the end, she just snorted. "You should be happy to have such a beautiful girl as your friend. Don't bully her." "How can I possibly bully her?" I said, starting to put on my shoes. "I'll walk you out." Lin Hui didn't refuse this time. Although her son was an adult, he was still a high school student, and as a mother, there were indeed some things she wanted to ask him. Wen Ning squeezed her apron and whispered, "Goodbye, Auntie." Tong Tong also waved reluctantly. "Goodbye, Grandma. Grandma and Grandpa were so good to me. Sometimes when Daddy and Mommy were busy working, Grandma and Grandpa would take care of me and pick me up from school every day. But Grandma's hair was much whiter then. She looks so young and pretty now. Goodbye, little one." Lin Hui smiled, not paying too much attention. Then I walked her downstairs. Lin Hui frowned and looked at me. "Is she really just a classmate, nothing more?" I nodded calmly. "A classmate who runs to your house to cook for you? And she's still..." Lin Hui paused for a long time before continuing. "She's also a dog lover? But don't you dare lay a finger on her just because she's pretty. I wasn't joking just now. Don't mess up her chances of getting into a top university, understand?" I walked with her out of the complex, feeling a bit helpless. "Am I some kind of low-life hooligan, Mom? You came and I didn't chase you away. Why are you in such a hurry?" Lin Hui pulled open the car door and said casually, "Am I crazy? Your female classmate is visiting. Why would I stay there and be a nuisance? You're not a child anymore. You know what you should and shouldn't do? All right, I'm taking off." With that, she drove away quickly and casually. When I got back home, Wen Ning had just walked out of the kitchen with a spatula. Her expression was still a little nervous. "Did your mom say anything?" I shook my head. "No." Just then, a new message popped up on my phone. Empress Dowager Auspicious had transferred 3,000 yen to me with a message. "Don't be petty, big boy. Tell me if it's not enough." I generously showed Wen Ning the phone. My mom transferred me some money. Wen Ning leaned in and looked carefully. "What does your mother mean by this?" I frowned and was silent for a moment, then whispered, "It's almost March 8th, isn't it? She probably wants me to buy you a Women's Day gift." Wen Ning pretended not to hear that. To be honest, meeting Lin Hui was different from what she had imagined. She didn't have the typical rigidness of a mother and elder. She was completely the opposite of the equally strong-willed Xiao Ziqin. Because of this, Wen Ning actually admired our relationship. Although she knew she shouldn't be thinking this way, a strange thought kept surfacing. Being his daughter-in-law would probably be a very pleasant thing. Wen Ning touched the back of her ear and looked away casually. "Let's eat first." To be honest, this top student Wen was truly born to be a perfect wife. The ingredients were simple, but the meal she made was so good that Tong Tong ate with great joy. After lunch, I volunteered to do the dishes. Wen Ning played with Tong Tong for a while, then took the little girl to the bedroom to coax her to take a nap. By the time I walked out of the kitchen, Wen Ning had just quietly closed the bedroom door. She put a finger to her lips. "She's asleep. Let's keep our voices down." But after saying that, her face suddenly felt warm. Why does it feel like a married couple who just put their child to sleep and are going to another room to get intimate? I didn't notice her unusual reaction and asked, "What are we doing this afternoon? Studying? I brought my backpack." With that, Wen Ning sat down next to the clean dining table and took things out of her backpack. Seeing that I wasn't moving, she tapped the table with her pen. "What are you staring at? Hurry up!" Hearing this, I took out my test papers for her to check. Wen Ning looked very carefully. After reading everything, her expression relaxed considerably. She could tell that I had been studying diligently, although the English paper was still somewhat a sight for sore eyes. It was much better than the last time. She then said earnestly, "Are there any wrong questions you don't understand? I can explain them to you." I leaned back in the chair casually and nodded arrogantly. I usually don't make the same mistake twice. Wen Ning was a little confused. "Then why are your grades so poor? My mom doesn't really check on me. I go home and play games until midnight. Where would I find time to study?" I said, sitting up straight and starting to flip through the papers. "Do you really like playing games?" "Sort of. Just to kill time." Wen Ning was silent for a moment, lost in thought. She remembered the day I went off to sell my gaming console and discs with my backpack. Those must have been things he really liked. Seeing this, I mimicked her and tapped the table forcefully. "Are you going to study or not? If you want to look at me, just look. No need to use studying as an excuse, Wen Ning." Wen Ning snapped out of it. She frowned and glared at me. "Who's looking at you? I was just daydreaming. I've never seen anyone with a score below 600 be so arrogant." Feeling her contempt, I held my pen and replied grumpily, "You wait. I'm going to cheat off you on the next monthly exam." Wen Ning didn't get angry at my deliberate omission of a word. Instead, she found it amusing. "But I scored 688. Wen Ning couldn't help but curve her lips, joking with me for the first time. "Then I'll be waiting for you to cheat off me. But don't say it if you can't do it." Wen Ning paused, then said word by word. "Sir," hearing the score 688, I immediately straightened up. After that, Wen Ning stopped joking and seriously started explaining the incorrect answers to me. Although she was a top student, she was very patient. Similarly, Wen Ning also found that I hadn't been bragging just now. Not only was my comprehension very strong, but my memory was ridiculously good. By the time we realized it, the wall clock was pointing to evening. Just then, Tong Tong rubbed her eyes and walked out of the room. She looked at Wen Ning, who was packing her backpack, and asked groggily, "Mommy, where are you going?" Wen Ning pinched her cheek. "Mommy is going home. I can't compete with Tong Tong and Daddy for a bed to sleep in." Tong Tong let out an unhappy aw. "I thought Mommy was going to sleep with Tong Tong tonight. It's okay if Daddy is here. Mommy will come to see you next time. But if Mommy goes back, Tong Tong won't be able to see Mommy for a long, long time," Tong Tong said, burying her soft cheek in her mother's arms. "And Tong Tong loves lying in Mommy's arms." Wen Ning pursed her lips, clearly softening. Sleeping with the soft, fragrant Tong Tong must be very comfortable. And she had just promised Tong Tong yesterday that she would spend time with her. Since her stepmother and stepsister weren't here this week, she might not have this opportunity again later. I, who had been playing with my phone, Couldn't help but look up. Be a good girl, Tong Tong. Tong Tong wants to sleep with mommy. But I'm a girl. Wen Ning hesitated. Isn't it inappropriate for me to stay at your place? She wasn't worried that I would do anything. For some unknown reason, after this period of interaction, she trusted me deeply. I looked at her strangely, thinking her tone didn't sound very firm. Inappropriate? Besides, I only have one bed. Go home quickly. If you're late, I'll have to send you. So Wen Ning bit her lip and looked at Tong Tong in her arms. Tong Tong very appropriately pouted, silently starting to sweet-talk her. Mommy is the best! So, tonight, Wen Ning paused, looking at me. The living room is yours. Seeing this, my face was full of black lines. Not even married yet, and I'm already being kicked out to sleep on the sofa with a quilt? Am I going to take this disrespect? So, I pouted. Then what if you can't control yourself and want to do something bad in the middle of the night? My mom told you today not to be handsy with me. Your mother really said that? Wen Ning thought about my 1.79 meter height. She found it a bit ridiculous. I'm going to force you? Seeing this, my face instantly turned red. After a long pause, I finally managed to blurt out, well, doesn't Tong Tong help you? Tong Tong and I together can force you. Wen Ning felt like I was leading her astray. Tong Tong, seeing me trying to ruin her good thing, also got anxious and quickly shouted at me, Daddy, don't bully Mommy! Hearing this, I fell silent. Actually, I wasn't that resistant to the idea. I just felt that Wen Ning was too unguarded around me. Although it wasn't a bad thing. After dinner, I sat on the sofa playing with my phone, occasionally looking up to see Wen Ning sitting at the table, teaching Tong Tong to write. This girl, who seemed like a cold iceberg to outsiders, now had eyes full of gentleness. Tong Tong, this stroke you wrote is wrong. Then Mommy will hold my hand and teach me how to write. Looking at the two beautiful females who looked alike, I really had the illusion of a home. Or rather, it wasn't an illusion, because Tong Tong really was related to me by blood. And Wen Ning had been inextricably and complicatedly linked to me since the moment Tong Tong appeared. By 9 p.m., Tong Tong was finally starting to get drowsy, yawning constantly with squinting eyes, like a sleepy kitten. Wen Ning led Tong Tong to the bathroom to wash up, then held her and came to the bedroom. It was clear that Tong Tong was extremely happy. Not just because her mother was willing to spend more time with her, but more importantly, because both Daddy and Mommy were in the house. For her, a home with both parents present was complete. A few minutes later, Wen Ning sat cross-legged on the bed and Tong Tong lay in her arms, mumbling groggily, Mommy used to tell me stories about when she was with Daddy every day. Why aren't you telling me today? Wen Ning's voice was soft. Because those things haven't happened yet. When will they happen? Wen Ning kissed her daughter's cheek but didn't speak. It took another half hour or so for Tong Tong to finally fall sound asleep. Even in her sleep, she had a sweet smile on her face, holding her mother's hand as if it were a precious treasure. Wen Ning carefully withdrew her hand, then walked to the bedroom door and said, Shuche, Den Tong and I are going to rest. You should rest early too. I, playing with my phone, casually replied, Remember to lock the door. That way if you open the door in the middle of the night, I'll hear it. Hearing this, Wen Ning angrily pursed her lips, not wanting to talk to me anymore. She pressed the door lock and returned to the bed. In the darkness, Wen Ning felt her daughter's hot, soft body hugging her tightly, mumbling, Mommy. In the living room outside, there were occasional subtle sounds of movement, but they were clearly intentionally quiet. This faint movement made Wen Ning feel inexplicably secure, and she quickly fell asleep. When she woke up again, it was already late at night. Wen Ning felt a burning thirst in her throat. She carefully moved Tong Tong's hand aside, then got up to go to the kitchen for a drink of water. But she didn't expect me to still be awake, sitting at the dining table and typing on my keyboard. Hearing the sound, I turned around and looked at the groggy Wen Ning. I smiled meaningfully. Why don't you go back and wait a little longer? Hearing this, Wen Ning sobered up a bit. I just came out for a drink of water. I didn't tease her further, just nodded. There's warm water in the bottle. Go pour it yourself. A few minutes later, Wen Ning came out with a glass of water. Why aren't you sleeping yet? She asked confusedly. Then she leaned over and looked at the computer screen. It was a black interface with strings and strings of dense code. Looking very complicated, and not something a high school student of this age would be working on. I didn't explain, just rapidly tapped the keyboard, looking a bit tired. Wen Ning realized. "Are you working?" I replied lazily, "Not really, just doing some simple small things. Easy and quick money. It'll cost a lot when Tong Tong goes to school." Wen Ning was stunned. The light from the computer screen stung her eyes a little. Her expression was somewhat dazed. This was the first time she felt that the long gap between the two timelines had truly disappeared. Although my face was much younger, for a moment she felt I really overlapped with the middle-aged man in Tong Tong's photos. Snapping out of it, she immediately reached out and pressed down on my keyboard. "It's late. Go to rest first." Seeing this, I smiled. "In a little while. You go to sleep first." Wen Ning pursed her lips. "Tong Tong is my daughter too. I'll help support the family when she goes to school, and I'll definitely pay back what I owe you." Hearing this, I was a little surprised. Supporting the family? Isn't that just supporting Tong Tong? Are you gonna support me too? Then I checked the time and realized it was quite late. I closed the laptop and stood up. "All right, go to sleep. But top student Wen, you'll have to earn more money in the future." Tong Tong said my value is very high, so I'm worried you won't be able to afford to keep me. Who said I was going to keep you? With that, Wen Ning remembered that her previous statement had been problematic. She desperately wanted to refute me, but after a long silence, she managed to blurt out, "Then you'll have to learn some skills, like singing and dancing. Otherwise, I'd be losing out." I gave a mischievous chuckle. "Dream on! I sell my body, not my talent." Wen Ning couldn't reply to that, and quickly scurried back to the room. I didn't pay it any mind. After washing up, I lay down on the sofa to rest. In the room, Wen Ning was sinking into dreamland, hugging the soft Shu Miao Tong. Suddenly, there was a loud thump-thump-thump knock at the door. "I bought you breakfast. Get up and wake up, Tong Tong. Didn't you say your family was coming back today and you needed to go back early?" Wen Ning completely didn't want to move or answer. She hadn't slept well after returning to the room last night and only managed to fall asleep near dawn. But about half a minute later, the knocking continued. Now even Tong Tong in her arms was unhappy. "Mommy, go open the door! So noisy! So noisy! So noisy!" Wen Ning felt extremely irritated. Half asleep, a surge of annoyance welled up. She got up from the bed with a cold face, glanced at me, and then silently turned back to lie down under the covers. I froze on the spot. Seriously, why is this grown girl exactly like Tong Tong first thing in the morning? But it was early, and I was genuinely too lazy to go. After a moment of silence from the girl, I walked to the bedside and picked up Tong Tong. "Good girl? It's time to get up." Shu Miao Tong frowned and grumbled, "Daddy is so annoying." Quote, "Anyone who isn't up at this time is a lazy dog, a waste of space, Of course, I wasn't saying this to Tong Tong. As for who I was hinting at, the grown girl under the quilt could figure it out herself. Wen Ning muffled herself for a moment but couldn't stand it anymore. She threw off the covers and sat up, taking 2 deep breaths. "Shuche, no wonder Tong Tong gets mad at you every morning. You really are annoying." I was a little helpless. Tong Tong is growing. How can she skip breakfast? I don't enjoy getting up early every day to buy it either. Wen Ning really couldn't argue with that. She had no choice but to get up and take Tong Tong to the bathroom to wash up. The mother and daughter stood side by side, brushing their teeth in the mirror without saying a word. It wasn't until she led her daughter to the dining table and saw the still warm milk and corn that Wen Ning belatedly realized what had happened. She suddenly felt a little guilty. I looked at her with a half smile. "I'm upset that you lost your temper at me just now. It's like it never happened." Wen Ning's ears felt warm. She lowered her eyes and said in a low voice, I just couldn't see clearly when I woke up and didn't realize it was you." I pouted. "Fine, so you're gonna be a sore loser, huh? How about this? Next time you wake up, just ignore me, or you can even lose your temper at me. You want a next time?" I was nearly exasperated. "I told you. Why are you two mother and daughter exactly alike? Am I a dog that you two have to kick every morning?" Wen Ning felt incredibly guilty. She really was in the wrong this time. She had just made a pinky promise with Tong Tong, but she, the mother, hadn't managed to keep it. Thinking of this, Wen Ning finally made up her mind. "How about this? You can pinch my face, just like you scold Tong Tong in the morning. I won't resist. Can we not be angry anymore?" Wen Ning's last sentence carried a hint of pleading. Seeing this, my brain instantly short-circuited. Is this still the aloof school beauty I know? She's speaking to me in such a soft and flattering voice. Is she treating me like Tong Tong to coax me? I sat in silence for a long time. Finally, I pushed the 2 bowls of prepared oatmeal and milk toward her. I made these for you two. Drink them. After breakfast, Wen Ning went home with her backpack. For her, she'd accomplished a lot this weekend. She spent time with Tong Tong and checked on my current study progress. Once her family returned, she wouldn't have this kind of freedom. The following week, I decided to start practicing the 9-yen manual of concentration, a metaphor for intense studying, as the Gao Cow was approaching quickly. It wasn't that I wanted to score incredibly high, but Tong Tong's appearance had already altered the future, including our future universities. Therefore, I hoped my low score wouldn't affect Wen Ning's choices when it came time to select a school. This was perhaps a matter of male pride. That noon, Li Yuyu had just gotten her lunch when she saw me sitting in the corner, eating and reading a book. She couldn't help but complain. What possessed you recently? Before, you wouldn't study even if we forced you. Why are you suddenly looking at English now? I answered casually. Isn't it my rebellious phase? It only feels right to study when even the English teacher thinks I'm beyond saving. Mahan Yuyu rolled her eyes. Then she pulled out her small notebook and imitated me. Yuyu, I've always wanted to ask you something. Why didn't you choose the humanities stream when we were split into classes? Li Yuyu didn't speak, just quietly lowered her head to eat and read. She knew she was slow to react in most areas. Studying math and science was purely torture for her and the teachers. Just then, Chen Hao's voice piped up. Why are you two hiding here to eat? I glanced at him without speaking, because behind him stood a girl with large eyes, looking bright and lovely. Chen Hao smiled at her. Go find your friends over there. I'm eating with my friends. The girl blinked and suggested joining us. Li Yuyu looked up at her, then quickly lowered her head again, acting as if nothing happening concerned her. I spoke up. I know. Chen Hao talks about you every day. Hearing my words, Chen Hao was clearly confused, but the girl looked visibly surprised. Then the smile on her face grew even brighter. Really? Hao and I are just ordinary good friends. We met when he was playing basketball on the field. I smiled and nodded, continuing. He said you were a very cute girl, classmate Lin. The girl instantly froze. My last name is Shu. I'm Shu Qianqian from class 11. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. I was silent for a moment. My apologies. Then I must have mistaken you for someone else. Chen Hao never mentioned you to me. Li Yuyu was eating a hard-boiled egg and nearly choked on hearing this. She wanted to laugh but didn't dare, so she could only bury her face, suppressing her smile and turning red. Eventually, the girl felt too embarrassed to stay and took her tray to find her own classmates. I looked at Chen Hao blandly. Stop going around messing with people. Chen Hao leaned back in his seat carelessly. How am I messing with people? I went to their class to play basketball with the guys. She's the one who came over and asked for my WeChat. Didn't you see she looked pretty happy? Hearing this, Li Yuyu immediately said sarcastically, Then don't bring them in front of us. You change girlfriends every half a month like changing clothes. You have the free time, but we don't have time to keep track of people. Chen Hao pouted. You're the only one who dares to talk to me like that since we were kids. But you're so fierce, how will you ever get married when you grow up? Don't end up being 30 and unwanted, crying secretly at home. Li Yuyu ignored him, turning her head to clear the table, seemingly angry. Seeing this, Chen Hao scratched his head. I was just messing with you. Are you angry again? Li Yuyu was expressionless. No. My temper really isn't good, and I'm not good looking. There's nothing wrong with what you said. Chen Hao paused. I only said you wouldn't get married because of your bad temper. I didn't say you weren't good looking. How about this? If you're still at home and unmarried when you're 30, I'll reluctantly marry you. You looked up and said disdainfully, even if you haven't managed to trick a wife with that face by the time I'm 30, I would never consider a jerk like you. With that, she left with her tray. Hearing this, I subtly elbowed Chen Hao. Don't say things with never in them. That's too obvious of a flag. But thinking about it, I realized that, based on my daughter's age, Wen Ning and I must have married in our 30s. And according to Tong Tong's description, Wen Ning and I must have gone through a lot to get together. But how did two people with no contact fall madly in love and get married after college graduation? Thinking this, I took out my phone and sent a message to top student Wen. Ning, let me ask you something. Perhaps sensing the seriousness of my tone, Wen Ning replied very quickly, but was confused about my meaning, simply sending a direct question mark back. I continued typing. Who chased whom between us back then, do you know? Wen Ning paused, then replied after a long moment of realization. You mean in the future, right? How would I know that? You should ask Tong Tong. I replayed everything Tong Tong had said over the past few days and concluded, Tong Tong said you're always fighting with her for daddy. Based on that, you must have been the one who fiercely pursued me. So much so that you'd even be jealous of your own daughter in the end. My logical reasoning made Wen Ning fall silent. After a long time, she replied, Tong Tong also said that I make you kneel on the washboard and you obediently kneel on the washboard. Why couldn't you have been the one who pursued me? Wen Ning clearly knew her own personality. If she didn't truly like someone, they would never win her over. So she didn't think she would fiercely pursue someone like a silly girl. I thought the same thing. So I decided to go home and ask Tong Tong for a clear answer. Finally, we both sent the same message to the chat box. It certainly wasn't me. That evening at home, I asked Tong Tong who chased whom between Wen Ning and me. Tong Tong showed off, saying, Many boys liked Mommy when she was studying. Mommy didn't like any of them until she met Daddy after graduation. I had put the call on speaker, and Wen Ning on the other end was quietly waiting for her daughter's further answer. Mommy said Daddy liked her first, and he chased her for a long time before she agreed. After saying this, Tong Tong bit her finger, looking hesitant. But Daddy said that on the day they got together, Mommy was the one who confessed and stood on her tiptoes to kiss him. Wen Ning and I both fell silent. It seemed Tong Tong didn't know the answer either. So are these two arrogant people dating? Wen Ning decided to take the initiative after a long pause. I heard her give a cold laugh. He actually chased me for that long. He must have a lot of persistence, huh? I countered. It's all right. You had to stand on your tiptoes to kiss me on the day you confessed. It must have been hard work. This slightly discouraged Wen Ning. It was hard for her to imagine that she, with her personality, would do something so forward. But according to Tong Tong, given our respective heights, she would indeed have to stand on her tiptoes slightly if I didn't lower my head. I was also a little depressed. Chased you for a long time before you agreed? Tong Tong, are you sure Daddy was the wolf that got smacked away by the frying pan? Of course, I didn't think Tong Tong was lying. Perhaps we just didn't know what it felt like to genuinely fall in love with someone. In the following period, although we talked on the phone every day, our opportunities to meet were greatly reduced. One reason was the busy school schedule, and the other was Wen Ning's need to consider her family. It was near the end of March when I suddenly felt a sharp pain in my abdomen, and I was feeling dizzy and in very poor shape. Chen Hao and Li Yuyu were so scared, they immediately rushed me to the hospital. But to my surprise, after looking at my scans, the doctor suddenly sighed. A shame for someone so young, let's cut it out. I was instantly dumbfounded, with a bunch of question marks floating above my head. The doctor then slowly smiled. Don't worry, young man, it's just acute appendicitis. Just remove it and you'll be fine. I immediately rolled my eyes, internally cursing him. Fortunately, we sought treatment in time, and the problem wasn't serious. The surgery would take only a couple of hours, and with a few days of rest and controlled diet, I'd be fine. Li Yuyu finally let out a sigh of relief. You really scared me just now. I'm gonna pay the bill first. Chen Hao, call Ache's aunt. Wen Ning only found out the next day. I hadn't told her, thinking it wasn't a big deal. It was Tong Tong who called, crying and saying that Daddy had fallen ill. Because Tong Tong was sobbing and incoherent, Wen Ning's heart instantly tightened. She felt her breathing become shallow. Having gone through her mother's illness, she was extremely sensitive to words like hospital and disease. After finding out the hospital, she hailed a taxi right after school and rushed over. In the simple hospital room, Tong Tong lay by the bed, holding my hand, her throat raw from crying. I pinched her face. Be good, Tong Tong, don't cry, Daddy is perfectly fine. Just then, Shu Ling Ling walked in from outside carrying a basin. Hearing Tong Tong's crying, she also started to tear up. Quote, Ah, Che, Auntie's heart aches seeing you like this. You haven't been seriously ill since you were a child. How could this happen all of a sudden? You're the only male heir in our family." I was silent for a moment and said, "Auntie, I'm just getting my appendix removed. It's not a vasectomy." But Shu Lingling cried even harder. "But slicing your stomach like that must hurt so much. What if it leaves a big scar?" Right at this moment, Wen Ning anxiously pushed the door open and rushed in from outside. When she saw the two beautiful women, one large, one small, crying profusely by my bedside, Wen Ning immediately panicked. "Xu Che, what happened to you? You were fine last week." I was surprised and turned my head to look at her. "It's just appendicitis." The little girl got too scared and thought something serious happened to me. Wen Ning sighed in relief, but still bit her lip nervously. "Then, Auntie?" I chuckled. "Auntie is still a little girl too?" Seeing that she still didn't believe me, I had to show her the scans. Only after carefully examining them did Wen Ning finally relax. It took me a long time to soothe Auntie and Tong Tong, convincing them that my body was perfectly fine. At this point, I pinched my daughter's ear. "Tong Tong, stay at Auntie's house for the next 2 days, okay? I'm really fine. If Tong Tong keeps crying, I'll be sad too." Then I looked at Shu Lingling. "Auntie, you're pregnant, so please take Tong Tong back to rest first." Wen Ning glanced at the dark night outside, and then at the many missed calls on her phone. Before coming, she had only told her father and stepmother that she was going to the hospital to see a classmate. After thinking for a moment, Wen Ning sent a message to her father. "I'm staying here to keep him company tonight." After sending the message, she locked her phone and put it in her pocket. Then she looked at the hesitant Auntie. "Auntie Shu, please take Tong Tong back. I'll stay here to keep him company." Shu Lingling hesitated. "Are you sure?" Wen Ning nodded. "I'm sure. Tong Tong will only feel at ease if I stay here to keep him company." Hearing this, Tong Tong nodded, letting out a small, her eyes still red. I looked at Wen Ning but didn't say much. After Shu Lingling took Tong Tong back to rest, I checked the time. It was 9:30 p.m. I spoke up. "Wen Ning, you should go back too. You have class tomorrow. Send me a message when you get home." But Wen Ning ignored me. She took off her coat and placed it on the visitor's chair next to the bed, then prepared to go get some hot water. Seeing that she was really planning to stay, I couldn't help but frown. "Didn't you say your family has been strictly controlling you lately? What if your stepmother and stepsister make things difficult for you again?" "I'm really fine. I just need a few days of rest." Wen Ning's movement finally paused. She turned to look at me. "When my mother passed away when I was 7, she told me the same thing." I was stunned. My throat twitched slightly, but I didn't know what to say. Wen Ning continued. "That night, she told me to go home, saying that if I went to sleep and woke up, Mommy would be healthy and perfectly fine. So she had always been a little afraid of hospitals. After all, she had spent several years in the hospital with her mother when she was a child. Only those who have experienced it would know. My heart was also heavy, and I didn't want her to recall those past events. I quickly changed the subject. "Didn't you say your family won't let you hang out with boys before graduation?" I sat up, trying to smile, but the movement pulled at the wound on my abdomen, which still hurt a little. "What if your stepmother goes to school and reports me for early dating?" "Then you can just say I chased you. You've always believed that anyway." Wen Ning also smiled. "I won't leave until you've completely recovered." With that, Wen Ning didn't give me a chance to refuse, and turned to go to the bathroom to fetch hot water. But what she didn't expect was that just as she reached the corridor, her father, Wen Qiming, called her. Ning, where are you? Dad will come and take you home." Wen Ning hesitated for a long time. "I'm at the hospital. My classmate is sick. Since he helped me a lot before, I want to take care of him." "Is it that boy from before?" Wen Ning didn't speak. Seeing her silence, Wen Qiming patiently advised, "But this isn't something a student like you should be doing. He has his family. He will have people who care about him. The most important thing for you as a high school student right now is..." Wen Ning interrupted him. "Studying? But Dad, I'm graduating in a few months. After that, what will be the most important thing for me?" Hearing this, Wen Qiming didn't know what to say. Wen Ning held the phone and continued softly, "Dad, please don't worry about some things. I just don't know how to tell you." Since childhood, Wen Ning had always hoped that her father would show favoritism toward her just once when making choices. From her father bringing Aunt Xiao into their lives to the birth of Wen Chong, And even now, it had never happened. That's why Wen Ning hadn't told him about Tong Tong, and she didn't know how to start. The call finally ended half an hour later. Wen Qiming didn't know what to say to his daughter. The only words he could utter were things like, "At your age, you should focus on your studies." Both of them sadly realized that the rift between father and daughter had reached this point, and they didn't know when it had begun. I looked at Wen Ning as she walked back in and couldn't help but ask, "What's wrong? You were gone for a long time." Wen Ning put the bag she was carrying down. "I called Dad and bought some toiletries. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat something?" Wen Ning poured the hot water into the basin and said casually. I smiled. "No, thank you. You just sit there and read your book. Then please hand me the laptop from my bag. I haven't finished the work I took on yet." Hearing this, Wen Ning instantly frowned. "Absolutely not. The nurse said you have to stay in bed. Why are you so disobedient? And no phones either." She snatched my phone and locked it, placing it on the small side table. I was stunned. "Seriously? You're acting a bit arrogant in front of me lately. You're not even my wife yet." "That's right," Wen Ning said, wringing out the hot towel and unfolding it, looking at me. I chuckled mischievously. "Dream on. I sell my body, not my talents." Wen Ning couldn't reply to that, and quickly slipped back into the room. I didn't mind. After washing up, I lay down on the sofa to rest. In the room, Wen Ning was sinking into dreamland, hugging the soft shu miao tong. Suddenly, a loud thumping knock came at the door. "I bought you breakfast. Get up and wake up, Tong Tong. Didn't you say your family was coming back today and you needed to go back early?" Wen Ning completely didn't want to move or answer. She hadn't slept well after returning to the room last night and only managed to fall asleep near dawn.